Kasia, can you, or Bridget, can you hear me? I'm gonna sign out and try signing back in to try and get my camera to work.
All right, are you running it?
I am.
Let's go.
Come on, guys.
Please show Jennings is in the house.
I don't have the agenda. No. Me too.
No, but did you pick it up the other day and move it home?
No. Maybe somebody would bring it up. Oh, man. You know, I don't get paid anything.
Is that your mother?
The least I can do is have somebody that
Work here.
Yeah, you're right.
Is the door? Or is Cage?
Oh, is it?
Is Cage in there? You can share it if you want, it's fine. I'll lock it. You can go grab it, I'll lock it behind you.
You got 1 minute.
Sorry. Very tight.
Love to get out of here.
I agree.
You guys probably wouldn't mind getting out of here. We enjoy it. Oh, good. Although this will be, 10 hours after our first meeting, so. Yeah.
Work all day.
It looks solid.
There's your salary.
Oh, good job. I got 6. Oh. Let's thank you. Let's call this meeting to order. With the meeting of Georgetown Board of Selectmen, March 25th, 2025, 6 p.m. And let's see. How about the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amanda.
Here.
Rob. Here. Me here. Greg here. Rita Carey. 43 and Mary.
Yep.
Lynette. Hi Lynette.
Hi there.
Hope you feel better.
I'm trying.
Right on. We got you covered.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay, so I need agenda approval.
Search report and
Yeah.
What are we canceling?
executive session.
Oh,
We want to do the sheriff's first.
Which is
sure.
Yeah.
Then the whole get to sit here.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, dated March 25th, 2025.
Next Rob, second.
Second.
Amanda. And Denise. So first item on the agenda is.
Did we vote?
Oh, all in favor. Sorry.
Aye.
Lynette.
What about audience business?
And audience.
He doesn't vote.
Oh, yeah.
No, I didn't vote yet.
Audience business, thanks guys. Do we have anybody in the audience?
Yes.
Members of the audience have 3 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. Letters should be acknowledged, but will not be read aloud. So anybody in the audience? Present anything other than what's on the agenda? Online, anybody? No one. Thanks, Fred. Okay, so now we'll do the shivers. Oh, payables, I'm sorry. Payables. Anybody see anything in the payables that they'd like to have in?
So on page 1 under administration, dues and subscriptions, 1045, 570.
Thank you.
There's a $400 check for HDPLC. Our budget only reflected 200 for HDPLC. You attend, correct?
Yeah, and they gave you the bill for 400.
Is that new? That they?
I don't think so.
I checked that amount and it is within the regular amount we've been paying. I did not look at the budget.
So just note to ourselves.
Do we need to amend the budget or something?
No, but we know we had issues with our budget. I'm just pointing it out that we didn't, for whatever reason, we didn't fund it
You didn't change
appropriately. And so that's why I didn't know if maybe it was just an increase this year.
I don't think so.
And so then a question, in case you could probably answer this, on page 2 under signage for business promotions, the house of signs, when we paid that check out, is that able to come out of last year's funds, or that's coming out this, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm that. Okay, well,
You gotta do that within the police.
you know, thought I could ask.
Sort of clear on what happened? I'm not clear. What happened?
Yeah,
They ran into a rock issue and couldn't
Oh, that.
do the work,
Got it.
so
Yeah,
they had to bring in other issue.
okay. Okay, I got that.
all
All
right,
right,
I'm good then.
you're good. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the payables dated March 10th, 2025 to March 21st, 2025.
Second.
Rich, okay. Second goes to Rich, all right. Check.
All in favor?
Now, sorry.
We gotta go back to vote.
We got a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
You're already get out of it.
He's
I know,
done,
right?
now the attorney's here, now you really have to.
They're gonna do a presentation.
That's unanimous. And we're on the wire.
Either way, it's also, it should be stated in
Now, here in the evening, we're gonna do fairly again with the sheriff's office. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce new control captain Eric Rubin. He comes to us out of retirement, but a long career in law enforcement, over 37 years with Denver and some. We can decide that. His experience and a new perspective is something we look forward to. Moving forward with, definitely help build the gap with governments in at the administrative levels. Glad to have you here, so. This is Eric Rubin.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Great to be here. So, February report. I like to do these on the first meeting of the month for you, but unfortunately, we had a pretty busy week. February, we did work the hockey tournaments. Very few incidents outside of that. There was a couple noise complaints late in the night in the town homes by Cabot Creek, mostly the diesel renting member units, but they were cooperative and friendly while we were there. They handed out a breakdown by day of the week and hours of the day for each of you. The total number of calls for service for the month of February shows 231. Trying to eliminate the ones that originated out of the sheriff's office, which is located here in town, brings the number down to closer to 158 calls for service outside of our sheriff's office building, all to jail and bookings and things that they're the state address in the town. Through that, we had one wildlife call, couple animal control calls and follow-up on loose dogs, happened during February. I showed there was 8 motor vehicle accidents. Every one of them was on the interstate, but state patrol's problem, not something we would handle. If it's in the town, we would handle it crash for it. And then there was a significant number of blue run calls through the month of February, just under 55. Those are more the in progress type calls. Most of those were handled during duty hours that we had the operator assigned to the job. So I think we're getting our times dialed in for that, and that's why I printed out the day of the week. Tuesday had our highest volume, but that was also the day we had someone assigned to you guys, so they're out there doing work while they're here. And then hours of the day, again, that it is impacted by the significant numbers of
What's a blue one?
blue one are one of the in progress type calls, things that people call in, want someone to come out at that time. The blue twos are cold reports or code enforcement type issues, things that can be handled by the phone or need for immediate response. The time of the day, the second page that is given, the high points are middle of the day, and again, most of that is contributing to calls at the jail or the sheriff's office. The early morning and late evening hours are more the actual calls for service in town. The priority 3 and priority 4 calls are more the officer initiated ones. The priority 1 and 2 are the ones that call for service from the community that we respond to.
Do you guys have any updated data on what your current 911 response time looks like? No worries.
Are all the calls that are going through 911? Oh, about the except for the officer.
Yeah, we can track them by through admin lines, response times as well as 911. And we can get the response times up. And I apologize.
No worries,
No
officer. And then just to clarify, so there is for like us to continue to engage with stakeholders and citizens, 4 ways, correct, for people to reach the sheriff's office. There's obviously the emergent, which is the 911, the non-emergency number, which is like the kind of in between, the online reporting, and then is there a text option available?
So the only option via text right now is text 911. So again, it's something we encourage only in emergencies. And the standard we both held on that and Jeff supports is call if you can, text if you have to. In our geographic location, sometimes the towers aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And text uses a lower bandwidth. The power reaches more readily. So if there's poor cell coverage, text is appropriate. Or if there's a safety issue where they're not comfortable talking, by all means, text is welcome. Ideally, person-to-person contact, being able to immediately respond to questions and not funneling through text message is more efficient. So it's preferred call if you can, text if you have to. But that's only at the 911 level, not for a non-emergency.
Thanks, man.
Yep. Other than that, the deputies' response, they're getting more used to driving through town. We're getting a lot of positive feedback that it's encouraging our deputies, and hopefully they're assuming on here.
Seen them a lot.
Have they been able to do any walking patrols?
Weather permitting, yes.
Our gentle alpine breezes
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
do sometimes preclude us from such activities. With the warmer weather, I do think that, especially within the business district, I think that the merchants would be really grateful if that was something that could be passed along to a patrol deputies, but it, again, I think consistently we do hear that the interactions with deputies are really positive. Really professional, and we appreciate the service that we're getting from your people.
Any other question? All right. Before you go, I have some more cards to hand out.
Yes, please.
Somebody have these. Now, the phone number here is for my soon to be desk phone, but I'm so new to the organization that we probably purchased them on Amazon and hasn't come in.
Well, I think Amazon takes a lot longer to get from us in Denver, so thank you so much, sir.
Email address is me.
What district were you in Denver?
I'll just call around the city in various parts to find through things. Three, 4, 5. Part of 6, at one point I was part of it 2. At one time I had a citywide responsibility for that assignment, so. You know, over the many years, we just did move that.
Well,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Lieutenant's really thank you, always just we'll see you next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Go on.
Did I get you a card? All right, next item on the agenda is county building services presentation. That's the last.
I'm pulling up that presentation right now.
State your name.
Me, Jackson, County.
David Jameson, Clerk Lee County.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys. I think there was an agenda memo for this item.
Yes.
I did not read it. I am referring to that in homework. But I think our goal today is to present to you an updated, more detailed presentation on what it means to develop the county in terms of building market services. Maybe just prepare the presentation we can go over. I think we will get that up on the screen. So some of the, as I think many of you know, we had a fairly detailed meeting with Greg and Keisha and a member of the DRC, the planning commission member, and Wayne. I don't think Wayne actually is at the meeting. Oh, yeah, he missed it. The goal of that meeting was really to dig in a little bit and explore how exactly this would work. And the presentation you're seeing today addresses some of the questions that came out of that conversation and just tries to dive a little bit deeper into what it would actually look like for Clear Creek County to provide these services for you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave Danielson, and Dave will walk through the presentation.
All right, how's everybody doing today? Good to see you again. I've kind of outlined a few of the concerns and items that we've all been through in previous meetings, and I've actually met with the DRC on an individual basis. Just kind of outlining some high items here. Due to the limited populations and the resulting economic challenges unique to the town of Georgetown and Clear Creek County, a unified building department services may be beneficial to the residents, contractors, and the governing bodies of both jurisdictions. Obviously, we have a lot of concerns with the town of Georgetown and the building department, and I'm sure there's some hesitancies to change from Safe Built to Georgetown. We really want to address those concerns and hear them and really let you know that there's not a real good reason not to come along with the county. We don't want to force you into coming along with Clear Creek County if you don't want to be a part of the unified building department, but it's going to benefit the citizens of Georgetown. It's going to look, feel like the building department of Clear Creek County is actually the town of Georgetown's building department, because we are located here in your community with you. We have inspection services available 5 days a week. We've got plan reviews going on 4 days a week. Come to our office, talk to us anytime. Next slide, please. So we kind of outlined some roles and responsibilities coming up. We have the roles and responsibilities specific to the county. Really, this is just setting up the high level organization between how we will interact with each other, what Georgetown's items are. I'm not sure if everybody's actually had a time to read this. I can go over it a little bit more specifically. Everybody's read it? Okay.
And put it in the packets.
Oh, all right, excellent. So all of you have already seen this. So we'll go over and look at the city's roles and or town of Georgetown roles and responsibilities. One of the things that I would like to highlight in here that I think is important for us is that you would come up to the 2021 building code cycle. You don't have to adopt it exactly as we're going to adopt it. But I would be willing to work with you as the building official on your amendments for the town of Georgetown. So we can all come together on the 2021 building code cycle. Ideally, the town will adopt a fee schedule that's a cost recovery fee schedule, which is slightly different than you currently have, which is really beneficial for the county because you're not paying this anyway. We're not a for-profit entity. We'll be providing these services at the cost for the county. We can add an additional permit fee multiplier for the town of Georgetown. We have plenty of room for that. If you'll scroll over to the next slide. This is just a basic overhead outline of what the process would look like. This is the most complicated workflow that we have. This for a single family residence. This would be very similar to workflows for a commercial permit application, an addition, a remodel. Anything less than this would be a more simplified workflow process, which we'll have to work with the town of Georgetown, Asia and Greg to come up with the correct workflows for the permits for Georgetown. So here we're just talking about the permit fee multiplier, where it originated from. It didn't come from me, it comes from the ICC, nationally recognized body. It really modernizes fee schedules, makes them very simple, and allows you to adjust them every year. Next slide, please. So this is a direct cost comparison from some data that I got from the last town of Georgetown manager. I've done the Clear Creek County projected fee schedule for 2.4% of permit fees. You'll see that we're coming about $5,000 cheaper in Gulfville. If you took this for Safeville, excuse me, and applied it across the board to all permits for Georgetown, there's only a few that will come in higher. Those are the specific one-stop inspections and life safety inspections. Everything else will come in lower, which will allow us to apply a permit fee multiplier or town's increased costs to that and still come in less than Safeville. So we have approximately $5,000 to work with between just these 8 permits. You can expand this out to the rest of your permits and that number will just grow.
I just want to add one thing here, which is that, so this shows how the permit prices will go down overall, and I just wanted to add a detail on the county's cost recovery and revenues. Because of this permit multiplier approach and this cost recovery structure for the permits, the county's permit revenue will be the same, whether Georgetown, Idaho Springs and the county are in the pool, or only Idaho Springs and the county are in the pool. The difference is the costs to residents. So the more community entities that join, the lower the permit prices will end up being for residents. Make sure that distinction is clear.
We estimate that the permit fee multiplier on average will be between 2 and 2.5%. So on a $100,000 project, that's either $2,000 or up to $2,500. Not a big difference when you consider you're working with a $100,000 project. And like Amy stated, these costs will go down with the addition of Georgetown and Idaho Springs. We project that to be right around 2%. It'll be on the low end. Currently we're on the high end, and that's the county's permit fee multiplier, just considering the county's construction. Next slide, please.
Are you talking to Empire and?
Empire's already
Kim?
already in.
So is there anyone not besides Idaho Springs and us? Right now?
Silver Plum. Well, and Idaho Springs is
Is
already
already.
decided to join.
Okay,
And
So-
Silver Plume is not. We are not in discussion with Silver Plume currently.
plans to?
I'm not at this moment. Fighting off smaller bites of the apple at a time. No, that's fine. Well, I was just wondering because, as you say, if more are involved in this, then it could reduce the
Yeah.
overall cost of the community.
Right, because it increases the valuation of the total permits and that reduces the multiplier.
Right. So we were asked for building guidance, middle instructions available. These are our building guidance, middle instructions that we use through the ICC. Beyond this, we have our general submittal instructions available on our website. Next slide, please. So here I really highlighted the significant changes to the building code amendments. These are Clear Creek County significant changes. You'll see that most of these are in chapter 1 and chapter 3 with a couple of minimal changes to the IUBC and the fuel gas area. Most of these were taken and adapted to match Georgetown and Idaho Springs requirements already. The chapter 1, the 101 section, those are specific changes to the administration of the building code, which really drives how we operate as a department. The chapter 3 changes are really design requirements mostly, which Georgetown's design requirements will be akin to and very similar to Clear Creek County Incorporated. So it would almost be a direct match for match amendments adopted as I see it. There is one section in there, 315.2.2, which is related to carbon monoxide and smoke alarms. We deleted a few sections in that section, which are for basement finishes and alterations not being required to come up to the new code requirements for carbon monoxide smoke detectors, which is interconnected, powered by the home's electrical system with the battery backup. So on those projects, they would actually need to come up to new code requirements as the county has it adopted currently. Was there any questions or concerns about amendments in any way, shape, or form?
When the town, if the town reviews when it adopts the 2021 code and does the usual thing that all local governments do with, okay, we're adopting the following local amendments. You said that those mostly, or your development mostly matches up. So there's a good answer to this. I'm not asking the question very well, but the county's likely got its local amendments, which are already in place. So you'd be out. The town wouldn't be required to adopt the county's local amendments word for word.
No,
Correct.
no, we
We'd like it to be close.
same code cycle is what our goal is.
Yeah.
So
And I would say we would certainly love it if you would consider the county's amendments and say, hey, will these work for us? Yes or no? But absolutely not.
So if there's a local Georgetown snow load
Right,
requirement, which unlikely, but it just as an easy
Absolutely.
example.
Yeah.
Then fine,
Yeah.
that would be the local Georgetown amendment, which the county would then be capable of enforcing.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
We did actually change our snow load a few years back, so I don't know if it's the same. I mean, I would think that would be, it's probably just an example, but I would think that would be consistent, we're all in the same, temperature zone,
We probably all are.
climate zone.
What about life safety codes? Cause I know, so I think one of the, obviously the big one that people are concerned about is sprinklers. And those types of implications into historical structures.
Duplexes and above, and we can push back.
And so, I mean, with the, what it takes to, it's not, I don't think people want to avoid it because they don't believe in life safety. But they become so cost prohibitive in these, in this district specifically. So what would that look like?
great. So we did provide a specific amendment for new construction, and we gave 2 exceptions to get out of the sprinkler requirements on single family, 2 family. Anything bigger than that on new construction, we would expect the sprinklers to be installed. For existing buildings, we would only require sprinklers installed when the code broke through the existing building code, which is a limited number of changes. It's usually a change in use or increased occupant load or increase in hazard classification. So we also provided in the existing building code 104.10 modifications, and we allow the town through a design or a review commission to make a judgment on those code requirements, and it could be reduced through that.
So if the town came in and said, we're not gonna make you put sprinklers in and not contradict
You
it,
can do that.
we would be.
You would be able to do that, if, as we've got it currently adopted through the county.
New construction obviously is different.
Right, new construction.
Which
a little
is,
bit
I don't,
different.
yeah, it doesn't, but I feel that's a concern, as we have a lot of very old buildings here and people that are really worried about how to pull them up to the new code requirements.
Correct.
Recently, somewhat recently, we worked through quite an extensive approval system for the Lucha building.
Right.
With Safe Built and the contractors at the time. Now, that project is stalled. And I realize building codes can change by the time something that, you know, starts to move in that direction again, but I would hope that the agreements that we made, because it was a historic building, there were some areas sprinkled, and I can't cite all of these off the top of my head, but that, again, there is room for consideration as we have gone through that line by line by line. What was that, like 2 years ago?
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that far.
Would you, I guess maybe you're asking, would the building official consider our decisions?
Oh, exactly, I would hate to have to go through it all over again and be like, no, we're throwing this all out because it was them, not you, you know, kind of situation. But recognizing that things change and we are, you know, we do want it to be safe, but there were some workarounds and some agreements and, you know, so.
Not completely knowing what those workarounds and agreements are, I'm not gonna jump in and say
No,
yes or
I
no to
understand.
that. But as long as it was reasonably safe, life safety is covered, the county is going to be in agreement with the town of Georgetown. You know, we're not gonna be worried about boarding up windows and reducing the egress down to one egress door when two are required and things like that. And we are operating with the spirit, intent of the code, and we're not making the structure less safe. Is what the important thing is, because this is, every existing building exists as allowed by the code that was adopted in, and it's allowed to exist like that forever. So any improvements we make through a remodel or an alteration is only going to improve the life safety for the most part. So the main thing that I'll be looking out for is that we're not going backwards and making the structure less safe than it currently is.
Have they ever figured out how to flush the sprinkler system?
Have they ever figured out how to flush a sprinkler system?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Did you just take
Well,
the
you
head
know,
off?
in one,
Have I ever
it's
what?
the ickiest black
Oh.
water that smells horrible.
Yeah. You ever
That's
seen
why
a
you should not have.
YouTube video where they got a YouTube video where the guys are working on a front end underneath it, it discharges and it covers them with black goat. But the cleverest solution that I found to this was an individual that hooked his toilet up to the furthest head. And so every time he flushed his toilet, his sprinkler system was getting.
Well, if there was a way to do that, it would be way better.
Yeah. So
That's fine.
I have one more question,
Okay.
and I recognize it's probably a little bit of a loaded question, but it has come up. The license requirements for our contractors.
Yes.
And so. Again, I'm a messenger on this, and I'm not great at, I'm not a contractor. There's a very divided camp on this. This segment of code adaptation, excuse me. What, is there any flexibility if it was like a commercial project versus like a handyman who was putting in a window? Like, is there what, like, is there any, is, or is the baseline, you have to be licensed and that is just the way it is?
Yeah.
Or a DIY project, I mean, what if, you know, someone's taking it out.
And they do permit, yeah,
that was
that-
one of my
that's a good
questions.
point.
You can maybe-
That's a better example,
Yes.
thank you for that.
you can do work for yourself on your own structure in a house that you reside in without needing the contractor's license. And you only need the contractor's license when it's work that requires a permit. So if you're performing a scope of work that doesn't require a permit, you won't be required.
You need one if you're the general.
You do not need one if you're not the general, because you're performing your work under the guidance of the general contractor. So if you're building a new single family residence, the only person that needs to be licensed is the general contractor, plumber and electrician. The plumber and electrician, because the state's already requiring that, they're not gonna license us. So the only ones we're picking up is general contractor, The mechanical contractor and some niche services, roofers, windows, siding. So beyond that, drywallers aren't gonna be included. Kramer, if he's working under the guidance of a GC, he won't need to have his license because the GC who's building the house already has his license. So there's a lot of area where individuals performing work in the county will not need a license. But there are some specific cases where we do want to see that license because we want to ensure the person that's overseeing the project has the proper knowledge and expertise to be running that project.
I can see a homeowner putting on their own deck and you're gonna need a permit for that, or re-roofing, you're gonna need a permit for that, and so. You know, I'm not the kind, I wanna. Am I gonna have to do that?
No, you are not going to have to do that for your.
I mean, it's obviously a permitted, you know.
But it's
piece of
your own
work.
work.
You're the owner builder.
But if you call some rando to come help you with that.
Rando better have his contractor.
That, I think that seems to be a kind of a sticking point for some of our local people, and I don't. I think it's a hard issue because I respect the fact that, yes, you do want to make sure that the people who are doing this level of work know what they're doing, you're not gonna like, burn your house down or. Make it fall down or whatever. But I don't know if like maybe there's like some grace or time that could be applied to that, because it does feel. Like that is affecting people more than I imagined it would, to be honest.
What if we were interested in pursuing this opportunity with the county, but we're adamant in saying, no, we do not want to require a contractor license?
I wouldn't say that that's a hard line in the sand, but I would encourage you to move in that direction. Because it's not only the contractor's education and experience that we're auditing that they also have adequate insurance, that we've determined to be a $1 million liability policy. Nobody around here has a house that's less than $500,000. So I mean, that's not an unreasonable amount to assess and make sure that they're adequately insured. And that takes some of that worry away from the citizens, knowing that they've got a licensed contractor, they're going to be adequately insured, they're going to be adequately experienced. It also complements the building code because we know we're walking onto a job site with an individual that has passed some minimum certifications and demonstrated minimum knowledge in the scope of work they're performing.
We do have a grace, there is a grace.
There is,
period.
yes, there is also a grace period. The first year, you can get a probationary license if you pulled a license in the last few years or a permit in the last few years, you get your contractor's license on a probation. You can come up to our new requirements that period. The one requirement you will have to meet automatically is going to be the insurance requirement. We'll let you slide on a test or continuing education, things like that. There was something else that was floating around in there and just escaped. Right there.
There's a substantial difference though between the contractor's license test and the inspector's test. Right?
There's somewhat of a difference, right? So there's gonna be more testing on the specific types of fasteners depending on which kind of license you get. So we're currently licensing, if you go to the next slide, actually, we've got contractor licensing requirements coming up. Let's go ahead and go one more, please. So we're offering 4 or 5 different kinds of licenses, the Class A, Class B, Class C. Those are all general contractor licenses. A Class A license allows an individual to construct, alter, repair, demolish any building. That could be the World Trade Center in New York City, which I realize is no longer there. Bad example. Class B.
We just saw it.
Yeah, so the Class B license allows you to construct, demolish, repair any construction. I think I can start talking to 3 stories. The Class C will allow you to construct, demolish, repair, alter any single-family residence or multifamily residence. The Class D license is our miscellaneous
You're back,
license.
Bridget, we're okay.
That's when you're performing a specialty scope of work. You would provide us with a test that you took through the ICC for applying roofing or siding, the windows or sprinklers. And that's what license you'd receive there. The Class N is just a mechanical contractor's license. We're accepting any and all tests through the ICC or an equivalent test that was taken through a trade school or another recognized body. So it's not a real hard a high bar to pass on some of these. The individuals that are performing limited scope of work will have a real easy time going through a test.
What do you have to get a class C?
So to get a class C, you'll have to take the residential contractor's licensing test through the ICC. It's gonna go over some generic design requirements, guardrails, handrails, framing, fastening requirements, general brace wall type things. Class B is gonna take that over into the commercial world and do those actual exercises out of the IBC. And then a class A is just gonna be more restrictive, and it's gonna really get into occupancy, use, and means of egress to buildings with more than 4 stories.
How much is
Very
class?
many of those licenses in this story.
We haven't issued a single class A. Most all of our licenses are class C. I'm not even sure if we've issued a class B yet, because we don't have, in the county, Clear Creek County unincorporated, we don't have that much commercial work. We have mostly residential. Same with the town of Georgetown, in Idaho Springs. Nobody's gonna need a contractor license beyond the class B to perform work on any of our buildings. I don't know of one building that's commercial over 3 stories tall in the county.
What about Microsoft? How many
3
stories?
stories.
Is it 3?
Yep.
It's like trying to count in my head.
Why not go first now?
Why not?
Does
Now
how much
for
does the
other
class C test cost?
Each one of these tests can be a little expensive. This one's $305.
With the C or?
The class C, yeah, all of them. Class C.
And once they take that, it's good forever?
Yeah, once they take it and demonstrate compliance, it's good forever, and then we're asking them to do at least 8 hours of continuing education every year. Which there's through the ICC or the Colorado chapter, there's education available in person down in Loveland in Denver. They can join a professional body, and maybe they have some online training they do through the, I know they do online training through the ICC too as well, if you don't want to go down in person. So a lot of this stuff is available.
Is that free or would there be a mix?
So the ICC actually has a number of free trainings available online. They're about an hour long, so you might have to find 8 of them to attempt to get a full 8 hours of continuing education, but a lot of them are free through the ICC.
And 8 hours is required annually? Did you say?
Yeah.
So eventually you're gonna run out of the free 1 hour session.
Well, they refresh them and renew them,
Oh, okay.
so they're always rotating.
So I may not be articulating this correctly, I'm, don't feel the mess in here. So if someone has gotten their contractor license and the architect obviously is licensed and the engineer has their license. The question is, I understood it, that was posed to me, to pose to you, is why would they be required to go through the extra step of plan review? If everyone's licensed and is supposedly showing, demonstrating the right level of ability in those areas.
Competency, right? So we're a checking agency, right? So we're going through and auditing and keeping everybody honest is what we're doing. An architect and engineer are absolutely qualified to prepare a plan set. A person that's got a Class C license, they're automatically trusted to build a structure, right? But everybody's gonna need somebody to check them. If you know nobody's looking over your shoulder, maybe it's a little bit easier to lower notch that factor, or maybe it's a little bit easier to move that window and disregard that raised wall line. It's just keeping everybody honest, really.
I've had that experience for my clients, your plan check. Very often turns out something that needs to get fixed. Yeah, even on a large commercial. The plan check finds things.
I don't know what answer they were expecting, but I thought I would throw it out there.
So that's a great question. I mean, single family residences that we receive plans, sometimes will only receive a full set and they won't have any architectural details on there. And so there's a lot of life safety aspects to the plan that's automatically missing, and that's prepared by an engineer because he only prepared the structural. Nobody ever came through and prepared the architecturals. Very oftentimes we have just little minuscule minor omissions or changes because they didn't get the right snow load, right wind load, different things like this. In almost any new single family residence or commercial plan that comes through, you can expect to go back with a correction or two from the building department. About 25% of all of our inspections are going to fail and need a re-inspection just because there's those small things that people overlook and forget, they didn't get their nail there, they didn't get their boat, they didn't strap where they drilled their vent through their top coat, just a whole bunch of little things like this that really increase the quality of construction and really ensure your home's functioning the way it should be.
Any other questions?
I experienced one small, Walmart just fought tooth and nail, code.
Yeah.
And somehow got by with not putting in quite the right mold. And they didn't believe that there was snow and stickers out from a brook can.
Yeah.
Big guy, shut them down for 3 months.
We had some really small. One we had a similar issue,
When you're backed up, wasn't it? Didn't you? That was like horrendous.
it was that took, and then that was like, yeah, that took years off my life, that whole process.
Well, that is,
Matters.
that matters, and it is a concern. We're designing for the snow load as we see it on average throughout the county. You could have a drifting problem on your deck, and your snow load needs to go up significantly. And we won't know that because of the specific site conditions, but
Wet snow.
Ours had a life safety component,
There you
that's why
go.
ours was tricky, but I mean, we can talk about it another time, yeah, it was an after the fact thing. We'd been open for 2 years, and then there was something in our original build that had to be revised.
I see there's no recommendation for action for tonight. I'm always thinking
So-
about, hey, what's next,
we
Scott?
did want to come up with a timeline if the board does want to come along with Clear Creek County Building Department. And we only want you if you want to come along. We don't want to force you into anything you don't want to do. But we would like to have an IGA signed by the end of June. And then we would like to bring Georgetown and Idaho Springs on together January 1, 2026. So that gives us some time to get your amendments in place. And I can work with you on that. Get those amendments together for you, make some recommendations. Then that gives us time to create some workflows and work with town staff to really design our permits and our workflows and our processes and procedures the way that it fits for everybody. Where we step into this at the beginning of the year, we're all set and it's as smooth as possible, not to say that there won't be little hiccups and stuff along the way. But the idea will be to step around those potholes as much as possible with that 6-month time period.
How's Idaho Springs voted to go on?
Not yet. We're drafting the IGA.
Yeah, so, okay.
So I know one of the concerns that Glenn had, but this seems to address it, but just to share with everyone, offline conversation we had, was to not jump into it now during building season that's coming upon us. And so that timeline seems to address that in a much better way. I'm sure it would make it easier on your, lifespan too.
Yes.
June, yes, let's get flooded with all these new problems, kind of thing. And so that does give me a little bit of, comfort to know that we have that time, and I would hope that there would even be that during that transition, assuming we sign, Jay. That, don't want to promise, that you would be working, side by side with whomever here.
Yeah.
And, okay, well, you were doing it, here we go, but we're doing it, here we go, and, so it's.
Yeah, I think there absolutely would be plenty of time to do that. One of the components that we would hope to put in the IGA that we were planning on putting in the Idaho Springs IGA, as well as the formation of a committee that would include county staff and Georgetown staff. That would be an ongoing team that would continue to evaluate how things were going. That would be a team that could do things like work together on code updating amendments, be able to talk about that kind of thing and review the processes on an ongoing basis and just make sure they were staying connected. And in that 6-month period, say we did achieve getting this IGA signed in June, that remainder of the year that team would be very active in really nailing down what the processes would be and then how all that would work. One other thing that I wanted to just share with the board tonight that is not unrelated to this timeline is I am leaving Clear Creek County. I'm departing at the end of June. I am early retiring and moving out of state. I'm moving to Minnesota.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Even a really amazing lesson.
You know, most people who retire go to like Florida. You're going towards the Arctic Circle.
I'm going to the farm. Oh, okay, it's not so.
Well, Ely, Minnesota was where I lived
Oh, okay.
before I moved to Colorado.
Yeah,
But yeah, Ely, Minnesota is about 50.
you're gonna miss our snow, you know. Talk about snow though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of snow loads.
So we all have to get you ice scrapers, you know, so, okay, I just wanna make sure.
Not to detract from the news you just shared, because that is very important, but I did have one more just question. And maybe you guys have already thought of this, have you guys had any open houses for contractors?
We're actually in the process of having some of those open houses with the contractors we currently have licensed.
What about the unlicensed ones?
The unlicensed ones, we can form an open house. That's a good suggestion that we could bring everybody in and really start communicating with them and relieve some of their fears about the contractor licensing program. It's really not an incredibly hard bar to hurdle over, believe it or not. But we could definitely.
It might be a hard bar if they have dyslexia or something, which is a lot of people in I'm a country.
So the ICC actually does have some accommodations for
Okay.
those kinds of things, so they might take the timing off of that test for
Yeah,
individuals.
that would probably get it.
Right.
And also, if they're, it sounds like there's a year and a half or 2 years from now, ish, before they would have to have a hard
Yeah.
license. Might give them time to
Yeah.
feel better about the whole thing.
So it'd be, we give that probationary year, if you guys came on starting at the same time we started our building permit and service together, January 1, so I get them through December 31st, 2026. So it would really give them a head start if we knew we were going in this direction and we can really guide them.
Or we could let out a Springfield guinea pig and work out all those quirks and then we could say, sure, okay, we're ready.
You know, the part that's hard for me is like, with some, is I don't know what safe build brings to the table sometimes, and that's my way.
Well, but I, you know,
We
I,
can't decide today.
no, and I appreciate, you know, these
Mhm.
responses. And in all fairness, I think Safeville needs to have that same opportunity to
Yes.
respond. I'd also wanna find out from our own contractors if the promise that Safeville made just a month or two ago when you were here, because time flies or drags. I'm not sure when we last all met, that, you know, have they stepped up and are they giving our community the, you know, the inspections, you know, basically on a 5-day-a-week basis when called upon, as opposed to relying on their Tuesday, Thursday schedule? Because that was always something that was such a grind. You know, so we need to. Well, we want to make sure that we're giving the best to our community too. And so it just seems that, you know, we've been working with them and either they step up or maybe there's differences in fees, because I know we've altered our percentages over the years. But we've taken on more tasks. And is that, you know, consistent, you know, there's lots of little things like that. But I understand June is just a few months away.
That aside, is there a consensus in the board that we should go ahead and sort of move this direction, please?
I would like to say thank you for telling us this and we'll be in touch.
What is the board? You're right, your choices are, okay, it's a duration, we'll see you again, that's one choice. Board probably needs to make a motion or consensus, another is to direct the IGA draft we share, so that can be reviewed. And I can see that and report to you.
I'm not ready for an IGA yet. I still want to get the rest of the information. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your time or our time if we have Safeville come out and here's something that we're just continuing on with our relationship.
I think we have to still work through a lot of details. This was very informative and cleared up a lot. I think that we have to get a little bit more feedback from the local contractors and really in the big, like, clear picture of what the code impact looks like before we.
Lynette has her hand raised.
Who's one that
Thank
never-
you. My suggestion would also to be, let's take it up with the new board when they come on the 22nd of April, so
Right.
that we're not making any kind of long-term decisions with the current board, because we will have at least 2 new faces on that board come the end of April.
Okay, well, that gives you guys something to go on.
Okay.
Thank you. It was-
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'm sure I'll see you.
Yes, I'll be around.
That's, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've got. It's gonna be 3 budget, 2025 budget. And then adding fund 33 foster choice fund and amending the.
This is mostly for information right now, the public hearing. This is not.
So we're not, are we gonna have a presentation or nothing? Go over that.
I can talk about it. So it's,
So with that,
we need to add Fund 33 in order to deal with the Boston Place donation and money spent on that, so that is needed. It was discussed at the time, the budget was put together, but then we added to the budget. In dealing with the parks budget and adding the additional person, we I don't know if we didn't explain it well enough to the Parks and Rec Commission, but they did offer some changes. They don't come anywhere near covering the cost of the new employee. Plus, one of the changes they suggested was huge. Out of need for $62,000, they want to spend almost $40,000 over out of the 2024 carryover. There is no such thing as a 2024 carryover.
So Greg, I just was looking through the emails from Beth, and what she's trying to take it out of actually is the capital projects 192 section of their budget for the year, not the carryover. She called it the carryover, so that's not your fault.
I don't, is that legal to take it out of the capital?
Yeah, that's.
Well, but because of the way that's funded with that tax.
It's, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We pay Kevin from that, so I don't know why a second employee would be a problem.
I mean,
Mitch is,
but
he's already an employee. It's just switching departments.
Yeah, it's not, but it's changing the budget for parks.
Okay.
But the bottom line is Parks has a capital, the 1 and 2 line, which I of course forgot my budget back tonight, so I.
Sorry, let me look at the actual name of that line item, because I said capital.
It says capital improvements.
Is that what it is? Okay. It's not a separate fund though, it's in the
No.
parks fund.
But that's funded by the special tax that we,
The whole budget.
not the whole parks budget. There's a. We created a special parks tax back in 2019. That,
Yeah, Beth talks about that, and Beth talks about that in her email also, the 2% tax that was passed that sunsets and so on.
but I'm not sure. I don't know if we can use that. I thought that was limited in how we could use that. I may be wrong. I don't know. I just want to bring it to everyone's attention here so that we are utilizing it properly. I also looked to try to see how we could, like, I know Park said, oh, we'll fund the second person out of our budget, but we really like, the board to kick back in that same amount of money so we can continue on with what we have. And I didn't really see any areas
You'd say $60,000.
Well, exactly, with the exception of the capital outlay that's in here, but again, I think that's kind of a limited use. You know, money,
So
so,
that's 1065,700.
right,
I just want to clarify that it's not rollover necessarily, but I was trying to pull from it's the capital outlay.
Yeah.
You guys, I believe Mary is correct, but I don't have the ballot language in front of me right now, but I don't think we can count on that, that sales tax that was approved for parks that sunsets in 2029. I don't think we can count on that for, unless there is something that ties it to maintenance, and you can make an argument that you're hiring more people in order to maintain. I think we need to be cautious about this one.
and there may be a certain percentage of their salary, though I think we're really getting eggshell here. That could be maintenance, but I don't think it would offset the entire salary. But again, I don't know, and thanks for, you know, what your memory is jogged on that too, so. I would just want us to investigate how we can actually expend those funds, though I do applaud Parks for recognizing the need and willing to, you know, give up some concessions, but
Do we
I don't
remember
know what they can give up. What?
Was that tax measure on April or November ballot?
It doesn't
It was
say,
on the ballot.
it was
Was it
2019,
the April one or the November one? We had two apparently.
2019 is all I can know.
It was in November. The ballot issue was in
Passed in 2018.
November of 2018. The tax started in January of 2019.
That helped narrow it down.
That could.
Well, so I think, you know what, this is great, because I mean, we're not actually acting upon anything tonight, this is just for discussion.
Right, but
This gives staff a chance
the
to,
proposal I have in here is an actual amendment to the budget. So it would draw from cash on hand at the end of the year, it would cover the total cost. That's the way that reads. And it would give you time to figure out whether you can make changes to the budget or not.
January of 2019.
I want to figure that out, but I also then, I think Foster's place is cut and dry and easy. I would almost like to see
Because I mean, we're not actually acting upon it.
that resolution separate, because I don't know if we're gonna be able to act as quickly on this other one with some of the information that we need to come up with, and just, and I know this isn't official, but your summary on here, we don't really approve the transfer of one employee or an employee from one department to another. That's an operational thing that's not the board's decision per se. We hire the town administrator and the police chief and our consultants and lawyers. So I just, you know, we all agreed and are behind that action, but that's not really our function for us to say this person now works for this department.
Well, and I don't think, I'm not saying it's necessarily in person, but it is a position. And the reason I put it in there is it will require some sort of budget amendment unless you make these cuts somewhere else.
Oh, no, I understand it, but just in the summary, it says the board of selectmen recently approved the transfer of an employee from road and bridge to parks and rec. And that, I might be splitting hairs, but.
So it's important to keep that line drawn. Appreciate that, and all town administrators, will appreciate that line too.
Everyone's knowledge.
I feel like we got really foo-foo here a little bit because. The idea was that this second employee, that the parks department budget was gonna. Make some sacrifices so you have another full-time employee. If we're doing $56,000 budget amendment. To fund that $60,000, then where's the the savings or whatever, you're just throwing it back on us to spend another $60,000 and where's it coming from?
So I don't have ballot language, but I have an article that was written about the ballot language. And it says that, according to the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, Beth Luther, that the 0.5% sales tax increase would fund employees for. So that was in a quoted, I do not have ballot language.
I would rather see the.
I'm trying to find it, but that is. It appears that the intention was to fund staff. And 2 parks, so it says, according to the Town Park and Rec Commission. The revenues will fund a full-time employee to maintain the town's 8 parks and 2 proposed ones. The parks would have, so this time we didn't even have a full-time employee for parks, it sounds like we were part-time. So if we are. Utilizing that, but I'm still struggling with financial balance, that is on my, it is difficult to manage.
I would find it extremely
Oh,
amazing
okay.
to know that our former treasurer did not expend these funds appropriately.
Here's the
I think
resolution.
it probably is okay for employee, but I wanted to make sure that that's true.
That still doesn't,
No,
it's still $56,000. That little money.
Well, they did propose changes.
Well, maybe we need to see those changes too, because I don't think this is.
Not too clean.
It's just hard to read.
Well, so here,
I didn't have the
so
resolution.
if we can use this 192,000, so I'm looking at 1065,700. There's $192,000 in here, here's what it's supposed to go for, fencing, park surveys, designs for the public access. What of that, if we can,
We actually,
if we can use something, right, to offset with employees, then where are we, what can we postpone and reprioritize there? Okay, and that, so that would be my question, if this is
That's
funding
fine.
funds that we.
I exchanged quite a few emails with her where she didn't understand what the $192,000 was.
So it sounds like we have questions that can be answered for another meeting.
Well, but this is set, they have a hearing at the next meeting, there is no decision.
So can we separate for our next meeting at least Foster's Place and get that resolution passed? Because that one's kind of cut and dry and we're good on that one. And then we can pick this one around a little bit, especially if we're not ready.
Right, and is it, did you say it's the first reading?
There is no first
No,
reading.
it's just a public.
Resolution, so it's one. And right, I think we get that through next meeting. Resolution that's exclusive to Foster Place, kind of check that box. And research and information for the board, what the ballot questions say. Right, for you to really dig into the other piece, is that,
So you want to hold off the hearing on the parks thing?
I'm ready to go
For Foster.
for Foster's Place.
Right, and hold off on the parks.
Yeah, and
Until we can have all the questions answered. And we're gonna just need more information.
Okay.
legal and budgetary questions.
yeah,
So you good?
yeah, we'll dig up the ballot language. Because as you rightly point out, very often, you've got to really read every word there to end up deciding what you can do.
One thing that I'm reading, and I still have not found the legal ballot, to be clear, I'm looking for it. But there's another breakdown of the ballot in, another current article that says. The ballot would support maintenance and, employees,
Well, if that's the case, that's great.
but we need the language, I know
Yeah,
that, I'm
yeah.
just trying to.
You also need to look at ordinance number 10, 2018, because that's the ordinance that went along with that ballot issue.
Thanks, Lynette.
Thanks, Lynette. Thanks, Lynette.
You bet.
All right, so we're good on that. With no action currently needed. So. Back down to 4, which is town administrator contract. As you're in. Who's gonna talk about that?
I can do that.
Here, just wanna do.
Yeah. We asked, Dennis, or can you Use your voice to tell us you're here. You're getting promoted, Dennis.
Already.
Here we go. While she's doing that, I was not here last meeting, but of course, Joe did and we got the direction to put together a plan agreement, which we've done. We started with a sort of template that was on the town's drive, and it was pretty variable, but functioned pretty well. Mr. Durham made a number of changes and edits and sent it for Greg and I to review, which we did. And Greg and I had a pretty productive session with this, I think just yesterday. Time flies. And so it's gone through the machine a number of times. And you have, I think, in front of you both, the two things. You have a draft employment agreement, and you also have my email to you, which you got in the middle of the night. I mean, that's my deal. So
I read it.
there you go, very good. And it's my suggestion that we use the email as kind of our way of going through the kind of main issues here, because that allows you to see them kind of in a convenient place. Does everyone have that? I've got it. Everybody got that?
You guys got it over there?
It's, yeah, there should be one at your place. You should have it.
It's not in the pen. It's a staple document. It's in the front, yeah.
Here's one. Use that. Use that.
You got one, Amanda?
I do, yeah, I don't know.
All right. Dennis, did you get promoted?
I have been promoted. I'm looking for my next promotion.
Okay, very good. Well, we're working on that.
Okay.
It's honestly, it's up to the board, and I don't want to kind of run your show, but I'm really familiar with this agreement now, and I kind of summarized it in
Run the show.
Run the show. All right. I divided my email to you into two kind of categories: money stuff and other stuff. Right, there you go. So the first list is the money stuff, and these are the requests Mr. Durham has made. In some cases, Greg and I talked him out of some things, and so you ended up with what is here. There are a couple of things that came together yet this morning, which is this retirement plan contributions, and I can report on those to you. Let me just do a quick report, and then I think it's sort of open for questions on any of these elements. I suspect there might be a little tweaking. I'll keep making notes, and I'm prepared, assuming it goes forward with some favor. I'm prepared. Then we can do a motion to appoint and approve contract in the manner presented with any changes noted during the meeting. You know, I'll do my job as I always do, keeping notes on. So on the money stuff, you've got compensation at $170,000 a year. That was at the top of the range you announced. The car allowance, I'm not sure your draft does a good job of it, but the language that I now have in a cleaned up agreement, which I think you have in your places, is no car allowance, mileage used for town business at the federal rate. Health and disability benefits, same as all town employees, nothing special. Another big money item, obviously, is severance. And he has asked for 1/2 of gross salary. Actually asked for more, and Greg and I talked down that 1/2 of compensation. Rick originally had that at his departure. I think he started at 3 months, and within about a year, if I'm remembering right, he came to the board at I think a year review and asked for 6 months. Relocation assistance is pretty common, but this is not a reimbursable. But it effectively is. Mr. Durham has asked if we cut that money right away, which we can do. He's getting ready to actually, he can tell you in a minute, getting ready to pack up and leave so he can be here on the 15th or sooner. And he'll experience costs to the extent his costs are less than 10K. He'll return the excess to the town. To the extent that they're more than 10K, that's his obligation. Temporary housing assistance just for 3 months, $2,400 a month. That's what your providing for consent, I believe, is that right? On retirement contributions, there are two categories here. And I figured out what was actually happening. I didn't know that as a bit there's a 401A plan, the town contributes 3% for all employees, and that's what he's asking to contribute, same as all employees. Employees have the right to contribute their own money to a 457 plan. That's on them. That is not a town cost. So I incorporated that option in the agreement. There's some other minor cost related items, for example, PTO bank starting at 80 hours. They're minor in comparison with money. I'm almost done with my outline, and then we'll hear from you. Other items of particular importance, personnel policies, and this is classic. They apply to the manager or the administrator here unless otherwise noted. And in particular, administrators and managers never want the termination discipline sections of the personnel manual to apply to them. They negotiate their own deal, and that's it. And I'll talk about it in just a second. Actually, I think that's next. And that's very common. So you know the personnel manual applies unless the agreement sets it aside somewhere. The termination and what are the rules around termination? You'll notice there's two reasons that, well, the board can terminate the administrator at any time with or without cause. The real consequence, as you well know, is if you terminate without cause, you're paying severance. If the manager simply resigns, you're not paying severance. But the real question is, okay, if you terminate for cause, you are not paying severance. Well, what's cause? And there's two categories here. The first one is something that's likely never going to happen. Conviction of a felony, embezzlement of public money, perjury, solicitation of bribery. That's right out, interestingly, of the Colorado Constitution uses this very language to make you whether or not you're fit to run for state office. So any of you have to be convicted of felony, better watch out for running for state office. But I move on. What in my opinion protects the board here, it's important, and I argued for it and wrote it, is a second definition of cause, and that fails to adequately perform the duties of town administrator. And you can understand that administrator would say, well, fine, there's one person that just doesn't like me, you know, and so they run a motion on a Tuesday evening to fire me for cause, not adequately performing. I just don't have a shot. That's one example. And then there's the example on the other end where the managers perform really poorly, everyone resigns, and there's all sorts of real turmoil. That could happen, I suppose. You know, that would be a real cause. You know, you would really, that's really damaging to the organization, and you would want to be able to terminate for cause and not pay severance in that circumstance. But both of those circumstances fall conceivably within adequately perform. So what I did was to write a requirement that before you can exercise that, the board's got to vote by a majority of its entire membership to put together a statement of why the board thinks the administrator is not adequately performing. The administrator then has 4 months to demonstrate that performance. At the end of that 4 months, if the board still wishes to terminate, the motion still has to be by a majority of the entire membership. That's as much as I think you can do to try to eliminate abuse of that for cause language, protect the administrator, and frankly, protect the town from having to pay severance in the circumstance of administrator that's just not doing the job. I think you've got the right to fire someone not doing the job. You shouldn't have to pay severance on top. We learned by doing, and I wanted to make sure the severance language here was really clean. And that's what I ended up doing with that. The only other item I've gotten and done is, and Mr. Durham has asked that outside employment activities permitted upon notification to and consent of the board. It's got to be not contrary to the town. You're aware that he does have a consulting, certainly a consulting role that I think he'd like to continue to exercise occasionally, and I'll let him address that if I appreciate your time going through this. I'm happy to answer questions about anything I just said or anything in the agreement that you have. Dennis, was there anything that you wanted to add to the summary? I expect we'll probably get some dialogue from the board, questions on individual items now, but was there anything kind of as a preliminary you'd like to mention?
No, not really. I think I want to first thank Jerry and Greg for the work they put into this. It went pretty quick and we were able to resolve a lot of issues. But first and foremost, I'm just anxious to take over there in Georgetown. Heidi and I are anxious to move to Georgetown. So we're very excited about this. The only issue, I think, which is a small one, I think that's still outstanding, is we're targeting start date of April 15th, but we're working through the logistics of that right now, so it might be give or take a couple days. But if we write something in that's definitive, like April 17th, then if we make it in time for April 15th, we can get started early. My hope is that in the meantime, if the board does approve the contract this evening and we get all the signatures and everything done, that we can work over the next few weeks just to communicate back and forth and get to know each other and start talking about the issues that we're going to have to tackle when I arrive.
Thanks, Dennis.
Board, board have any questions?
I have a question about the, and I appreciate the 4-month warning, the PIP period.
Yeah,
Is that typical for 120 days? I've wrote some of those before and it seems like a pretty lengthy amount of time. Okay.
Yeah.
I think 90 days is the longest I've ever done with one of those contracts.
you know, actually, I think Dennis, when we were talking about this, actually suggested 90, and it was I who thought, well, let's give the administrator plenty of time to either get it right or not. I'm happy to, if we can move it back to 90 unless there's objection from Dennis.
Dennis?
Yeah.
Thank you. The reason that I think 120 days is probably appropriate is when you're talking about the private sector, or even in some cases the public sector, things move a lot faster than if you have to have public notices and public meetings to have discussions about certain topics. So the fact that a town administrator's performance would be reviewed or discussed in a public meeting adds on a little bit of time there. So you're kind of a prisoner to the public process, which is appropriate, but adds to that 90 days. So I think 120 is not too much further, but also affords us that time period.
If we think about it from the lens of our past experiences, that unfolded over about 120 days, probably a little bit more, if we're like really thinking through like the whole scope. I mean, I try not to. But
Yeah, my experience of private nonprofit, so I don't have to wait 2 weeks to sit down with folks.
I do think it's relevant here. And I'm glad you mentioned the town's prior experience, and I'm sorry I'm congested. So it's that low voice though, that's all right. It sounds good.
radio voice.
It's the radio voice, it's time to jump. But DJ Jerry. It's another whole story, I'll tell you about some. But I do think here as I've written it, at least, the board actually has to vote twice, and it votes on a statement of, here are the reasons we think about performing adequately, rather than it kind of showing up over time, and like a complaint in this meeting and that meeting. The board's got to pull the trigger with a document. And I think that's good for both parties, honestly. And do not write that with the idea that was favoring the administrator. I think that's good for both parties, so it forces the board to really say, as a board, here's what we care about. And it gives a roadmap for the administrator. And he's got that roadmap, and by gosh, if you can't follow that roadmap and respond to it in 4 months, then you develop a pretty solid basis to make a termination decision and not have to pay severance. So those are the dynamics I was trying to account for and protect both parties.
I can see the extended time period coming into play in some situations, but I would also not want to dismiss the incident or activity, behavior, whatever, that I don't want to wait 4 months for a change. And so, you know, 120 days, yeah, but boy, I'm not waiting until 115. Oh yeah, you finally got it. That's, so I don't know if there's a way that could be reworded to,
Well, it doesn't mean that you start doing something 5 days before the end of the 100.
well, but so if we're giving, the way I'm interpreting this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if we're, you know, writing performance improvement plan, there, you want changes sooner as opposed to later, and yet the 120 days gives us a long period of time for that to happen. In some cases, we may have to see that, you know, that time to go by. That was just a concern of mine.
I've addressed that usually when I'm writing the PIP, and it'd be like, there's so many weeks out, we expect this to happen by 30 days this. 90 days this, you actually make it all the goals in the PIP to be achievable and measurable, and but when you actually sit down and make that vote at 120 days, you know if they hit that time frame that you put in your performance improvement.
So does this language, Jerry, allow for that PIP to be written in that fashion so that there are checkpoints in between, and it isn't, you know, waiting until the bitter end
Yeah.
or something?
No, I appreciate that dialogue, and we suggest two things, and we'll see what Dennis thinks of them. We certainly could say that, you know, you can't, no termination spectrum unless until the board by majority vote gives written statement of reasons that not adequately performing it. There you could add, you know, statement of reasons must include goals and deadlines for performance, which allows the board then to structure that arrangement that Rob was just talking about. And then I would suggest also adding, it occurred to me, the administrator might say, you know, I'm gonna be ready in 60 days.
Right.
You know, I don't wanna have to wait 120, so I think I will certainly write it in. I don't think the board should be able to advance that schedule. He's got 120, it's in his contract. But if he says, you know, I'm ready, you know, I'd rather know in 60 days what I'm doing, you know, if not, then I can be out of here sooner, and that's good for everybody.
In my experience, folks, that once you clarify what your priorities are and put it on a time frame, people want to get it done. And so I think that's an excellent point where the town administrator can advance that timeline. And just want, because that person may want to put it to rest.
I have one more question. And Dennis, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This is, obviously, we're all trying, there's a lot that we're trying to work through, and but we appreciate your time and coming up to the interview. On the subject of the relocation assistance, is there, if Dennis was to get here and decides that he does not care for a gentle all-kind raises and leave abruptly, do we have any protection on the relocation assistance?
And in other words,
If he resigns.
He's been here a week, 2 weeks.
He's like, this
That's way
place,
too cold.
I don't
to
like
live
it here,
here.
it's too cold.
I'm out of
It's
here.
colder than Michigan, which
And it's
is
windy.
where you are.
Yeah, he resigns.
He resigns.
He doesn't get severance.
But do we have
Yeah,
protection?
do we get our $9,500 back that we gave to move out?
Yes.
It's not presently stated that we do.
I would feel comfortable if we put some language in the contract about a resignation on your end, sir, that if you resigned within a certain time period, that we would not be responsible for your relocation expenses. Georgetown's lovely, but we wanna make sure, wanna make sure you're good.
And I appreciate that. We've had folks relocate to work with us in Denver. And they worked a couple of weeks because they got some expenses paid for, and they took a better job. That paid more or whatever within weeks of being hired.
But thanks for helping me look at it.
Yeah.
You got any comments on that, Dennis?
No, not really, because the thought of quitting a job after a couple weeks after moving my family there across the country doesn't even enter my mind. So
Thank you for
no,
that.
no, I
You
mean,
don't know how nice it is here.
right. Jerry wrote a pretty good couple sentences in there about reimbursement of the expenses if the money's not used, so that's covered. And as he stated, there's no severance, so if you want to write something in there, a sentence or two that says if the town administrator resigns within a 30-day period, then the $10,000 housing allowance would be refunded in 100%. That's fine with me.
I do this, I can do that one. Let me go back to the severance discussion that the board was good with. I want to make sure you are, because it's an important part of the contract. And that's the insertion into that, the paragraph 11.6. When the board triggers this process, it's they must at the same time, their written statement must include goals, deadlines, and a schedule for meeting those performance deadlines on the front end. And then on the back end, that you still got your 200, 120, but the ability of the administrator to advance that schedule and say, I don't need 120. I'm ready for you to engage with me sooner. What do you think about that?
That's fine. I think though we have to, and I know that we all are, but in this discussion, sometimes things like this get lost. But the goal there is to improve performance, not to accelerate to termination. And so, if I get to the point where you want to negotiate a PIP with me and we all agree on the terms of that, I'm going to want to protect myself. The town's going to want to protect itself, and we're going to move forward along that and come to the most win-win beneficial for both parties. And so if that includes, and a smart way, I agree, it's a smart way. It includes benchmarks for meeting certain expectations, then we should do that. I just don't want to get too bureaucratic on writing that performance improvement program tonight, because then it's almost like you're saying,
Sure.
okay, you're going to get to that point, Dennis. Here, let's start this. So, so I agree. Any smart performance improvement program is going to have those kind of benchmarks and milestones involved. And if we don't reach those milestones, then I think we get to the end, both parties are going to be in agreement that it's not working out. Then let's talk about just our normal interactions. If we get to the point where we have to do a performance improvement program and it's a shocker to me out of the blue, then we're not doing a very good job together as partners in this program to communicate when there's an issue and trying to get those resolved right away. So it's not a case of let's save up a whole bunch of dings for Dennis so that when his performance evaluation comes around, we've got something to say. It is nobody's surprised by anything, and the performance improvement program is just something that we're doing to kind of structure how we get better. So that's a long-winded answer, but I'm fine with that, Jerry.
Okay, fair enough. And I would expect you might use all the 120, you might want to use less, but and it could well be that the deadline for performance and the schedule the board puts together, would need to use that 120 anyhow. But in a probably rare occasion where you say, I'm all done at 60, let's just do it. I'll provide for that, but that's your sole option. Right, so you can use the full 120.
Of course, I mean, what we're talking about here is the issue could be that Dennis doesn't show up on time for work. Dennis could solve that problem tomorrow, right? If that's the issue. It's one of those easy ones. But if it is something else like, the police contract that with the county is being negotiated and the promised date for that to be done was this day, and we're 2 months past that, that's different, right? Because we can't just call up the county and say, oh, Dennis needs to have this done in 30 days, get it done. So yeah, there's some nuance to all of this.
Fair enough.
Very good.
I think I've got reasonable direction on this, so I appreciate everybody helping me. Other questions?
Talk about these things I want to clarify.
Yeah.
So in 5.1. On page 2.
Yep.
The board agreed to meet with Durham in January or February each year for the purpose of defining goals and performance objectives, which leads up to the evaluation. And then in 5.2, the last line, the last sentence says these annual evaluations shall be conducted at least 120 days prior to April 15th of each year.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're conflicting or contradicting ourselves there with the time frame. So
It might be.
but just like that to be clear, because when I count 120 days, so if we could tighten that up so that it's an appropriate. And we. Sometimes our evaluation process is not as tight as you would like it to be, Jerry, so.
One of the
Oh,
things,
no.
So I just want that to be consistent.
Yeah. I think probably what's going on here is how much time do you need after the meetings in January, February to then sit down with the annual evaluation? Because it's kind of two things, and you're right, this kind of mixes apples and oranges. 5.1 is that, hey, let's annually meet about goals. And everyone does, good cities do that. And that's, while related to the administrator's performance, is not the same thing as, you know, and then there's the annual performance review of the administrator. And so I think they work off independently, but I don't have any investment in the time schedule here. I get it that if you sit down with them in February and talk about goals.
That we haven't done it, well, then, I don't know, it was 120 days in January and February, it didn't mesh in my mind, so you do the math, please.
Yeah.
And figure out, so that we're just, you know, it's clear to us, so we can pull this out and say, oh my God, tomorrow we better hurry up so that we're doing this within the time frame.
another thing that I suggested during the conversation is, I've become less and less supportive of performance evaluation over the years because the sole purpose of them is seeing if you can gain somebody. That's what you do them for. They're always negative. They're not proactive. They're always reactive. And if you set the goals at the beginning of the year, and you make a standard that you have a discussion once a month or something like that about how the goals are going and what's getting achieved and what isn't getting achieved. In a lot of cases, when things aren't getting achieved, there's some connection that isn't happening. It's not that the effort isn't there. Where like with hourly employees, a lot of times they're missing a tool and they didn't think to talk to you about it, but that discussion brings it up. So by having the ongoing discussion, it takes more time, but you're moving forward together rather than saving stuff up and bringing it up at the end of the year when you can't do anything about it. At that point, it's too late.
Well, in the end, it's going to be Dennis's board that decide whether or not they like, you know, the concept of the time and the kind of annual evaluation process. I'm happy to make sure that that we have enough time after I think that's what Mary's saying. Is there enough time after the goals and objectives meeting at the first of the year for the annual evaluation to reasonably take place? And I can run the numbers and make sure that happens. But once I've done that, that's just timing, and I'll do that. If there is kind of substantive change in the language necessarily that anyone needs, I think it's okay with Dennis because he's okay with this language. Or if you want to change it, we'll talk about it.
For that one?
Mike's
Yes, my suggestion would also be to take the evaluation, back it up so that it's not right during our municipal election season every 2 years. That way, the board that is setting the goals with Dennis is also doing the evaluation, and you don't have half the board change over potentially, and then have a brand new board trying to evaluate how he met I'm looking at this as a long-term thing. So many seasons of elections every 2 years. So back it up to March.
I'd back it up to March 15th, and I'd say that the goals and objectives meeting ought to happen by February 15th. So you've got the beginning of the year, you talk about goals, at the new year, do everything, talk about goals with the administrator. And then pretty quickly, we trigger the administrator evaluation, forms to go out to the board, they can fill them out. And I'll do my best job of getting them to fill them out. And but what's nice is I've never had a hard-edged date that I could wave at you, but there is now, if we put in March 15th. That makes things clip along appropriately. I think Lynette's point is well taken. You get the review done before the first week in April election every 2 years, and that's a good thing too.
That's fine.
Does that work? Dennis, objections to that?
No, my experience has been that both of these things go hand in hand, and so many of the processes I've been through is to have a performance evaluation based on the goals that were set the prior year, and then when that evaluation's over, then the board and the administrator says, okay, what are our goals for the next year? It all happens together. So if you want to write this in, Jerry, as something that happens on or before March 15th, that's fine, and we can get it out of the way. But I would say that both actions would happen simultaneously.
Wow. You okay with that? Everybody else? Okay. So it's a goals and objectives and performance evaluation session.
Yeah, whenever I do a performance review for any of my employees, it's always ends with, okay, now what's the plan for the coming year and what your goals are going to be and what the expectations are set for you. So I would expect to be no different than any other employee in the organization. And those goals that are coming up for the next year, some of them may be duplicative, right? We may be something like improve the budget process, and that may be something that carries over year after year after year, and we want to just make sure we're building on the successes of the year prior.
I think I know what to do.
I think too, that we want to recognize that typically during the annual evaluation, we're also discussing any kind of a pay raise. And I don't know if it needs to be written in here, it probably does. Even though we're being proactive and we're completing this by February or whatever the date is that we end up agreeing upon, that could stay consistent with the time that Dennis starts. So that would become effective on April 15th.
Yeah.
15th.
Yep, that sounds
So we've
good.
got all of our ducks in a row. It gives plenty of time for HR, payroll, whatever, to, change their things, even though I know it's just pressing a button now, but,
Okay.
Yep, that's great.
What I'll do is I'll say the goals and objectives and performance review session has to take place by March 15th. Any action that the board takes on compensation as a result of that process will be effective on the following April 15th. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
Mary, you were maybe getting to this, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but there's the blanks in the retirement.
and that's been addressed in the new one.
I have fixed those in the form of agreement that was handed out. And no, I'm glad you raised it, because you didn't have it as of midnight last night, now you have it. That's sections 9.1 and 9.2.
That's just the standard.
That's all in place yet. Yeah. That's fine. Other things.
So then in 10, disability and life insurance, 10.1.
Yeah.
I'm concerned, Dennis, if you get sick or disabled or otherwise unable to perform, and you exhaust all your sick leave and your 20 working days and et cetera, that the town shall, so explain this to me, Jerry, the town shall have the option to terminate this agreement subject to severance pay requirements. Does that mean we are paying out the agreed upon severance pay because he is no longer capable of performing his duties?
I think that is what it says, yes.
And is that consistent, and I don't know if we can bring this up, is that consistent with the action that we took when we lost our town administrator from 3 administrators ago?
Yeah, oh, right,
Yeah.
Your question, different form of agreement, I have to dig that out, I'm glad you asked. What I think 10.1 is saying, and it's fair for us to talk about it, I'm glad you raised it. What 10.1 is saying is, by definition, if the administrator's not able to perform his duties because of sickness, accident, injury, mental incapacity, or health, that equals a termination without cause, meaning severance. And another way of saying, I guess, is, as I earlier provided for, hey, cause includes failing to accurately perform the duties of town administrator. If that's established after this, 4-month process, that is still failing, the board makes that determination. You've determined that he's really failing to perform the duties, and so no severance. Here, he's not performing the duties by definition. It's for a different reason than incompetence, but he's still not performing them. And it's sort of, well, why is that our fault? He's probably saying, well, why is that my fault? Might be good for, I think this is an ICMA standard kind of.
I think AFLAC comes in on this. I have a hard time, and Dennis, I hope you don't get sick, but I have a hard time saying that due to situations beyond all of our control in that we are on the hook for a severance.
So we need to buy an insurance policy that will cover.
Well, there's long-term and short-term disability.
That
Do
the
we,
employees already have.
they do have that? So how does that figure?
You can buy additional disability.
And I know Dennis has got a reaction here to that, but the long-term disability would, that would protect him from an income stream standpoint going forward.
Right.
So the point is probably, if that's true, why do you need severance to protect you?
Isn't that 60%?
I don't
Some
know.
number. Dennis, what do you think about this? You understand why the board's concerned?
Absolutely. There's 2 options that I've seen as standard practice, and that is that the town would typically purchase a long-term disability policy for the administrator and pay the premiums, and then avoid this situation that you see here written into this contract. So it guarantees the income stream without any blame on either side, because no one's at fault here. Or if the town's not willing to pay for that policy, then this is the stipulation that protects the employee, but it also protects the town, because with that severance is a requirement for a waiver of liability as well.
An LTD policy runs like a negligible.
So I would like us to investigate that and decide what is in our best interests to provide that. I can understand that, but when we had that situation with Tom Hale, and then we ended up scrambling, and we had someone internally for a while that was stepping in, and then we hired an interim and we had a lot of executive sessions discussing how we were going to deal with that situation with Tom. So, and to the angst of the family.
For sure.
And that couples with the problem, the illness, the disability, whatever the heartfelt emotion is going on there. If we can protect ourselves, hire an intern, wish the best of luck to, but and with that compensation. So I would like us to look into that.
And like, just for perspective, because I was looking at LTD policies for a different contract. And the one that is being covered by another entity is $13.11 a month.
Far more than several months of severance.
And it replaces what percentage of income?
75 is what that particular.
So we can crunch all
I
those
have to-
numbers and
Yeah.
figure that out.
But I mean, they're, like I'm saying, like the cost perspective, and it might be higher because I think there is a rate of compensation that's part of the premium.
Oh,
This
sure.
compensation is not in this.
Yeah, it's based on salary.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I would say we're probably more in the vicinity of, I mean, if I'm doing like just logical math, $25 a month.
Yeah.
But $25 a month doesn't, I mean, it would take us how long to get to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To, you know.
Let me suggest this.
$85,000.
I'm glad you pointed this out. Let me suggest this, that we replace 10.1 with town obligation to purchase long-term disability policy to cover the list of things that would otherwise have triggered severance in this section. And say that the limits of that policy are that it's got to replace 75% of income. I don't think you would never be, even if you paid severance, that's 6 months, right? And then you're done. So a long-term disability policy, long-term at 75% is more, to be honest, than 6 months of severance.
There is also a component of para in that too, with what I just previously mentioned. And I don't know how that would impact because there's a point where you have to start drawing out of your para. And so the LTD's policy is like 6 months, and then post 6 months, you have to take your retirement benefits.
What I'm inclined, I guess, to do, and I do want to hear from Dennis, one of the goals I'd like, and maybe we've got to keep this over for another meeting, but I'd rather not. One of the goals I guess I'd like to get to would be replace 10.1 with long-term disability policy that's functionally equivalent in a numeric sense to the 6 months worth of severance that this 10.1 would otherwise provide.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Yeah, so what do you think of that?
I think that's totally fine.
And then this kind of takes away from that a little bit, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. We're assuming that we're all healthy here, but we don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. Would you agree to a physical exam, whether it's your doctor or whatever, to, provide to us so that we feel that you're not gonna be sick or mentally incompetent or whatever all the other ones are in here? I'm not talking the mental incapacity, whatever that word is.
This is the.
Thank you.
Well, you probably want to do an annual checkup just for your own, edification.
But this says sickness, so again, do we even want to go ahead and start the insurance policy for someone who may,
Yeah, I
I
don't.
think we run the issues and.
like I say, I'm just throwing it out because before it was based on the severance.
The policy would have contingencies or something for that.
It basically backs.
I might have undershot this, but I'm coming in at 91 on a ballpark. So I undershot it a little bit because of, there's differences in the positions, but
Yeah.
$91 a month still does not.
That's no money. If we are okay with a long-term disability policy that's comparable to the value provided by 6 months with severance, because that's really the amount we're needing to replicate here. We can do some research, find out, what those policy requirements are. And what that allows us to do is to have an agreement tonight. And if it takes us a while to figure out to shop around for that policy, that doesn't slow down the ability to get this contract going, get Mr. Durham here.
Right.
We have a place we can move around.
Yeah. Does that work for you, Dennis? You see what I'm trying to accomplish?
Yeah, and I would add that if you do investigate the disability policy and the carrier does ask for a physical to be done, that's no problem. However, if I'm just gonna say, yeah, let's have a physical every time the board wants me to have a physical, that's not, seems a little onerous.
Yes, we're not gonna do that. Okay, good. Other questions on the agreement?
11.3. I'm uncomfortable with a 6-month severance. I'm uncomfortable with a 6-month severance kicking in on day one. I can see this being negotiated over a course of time. But I would rather start it at 3.
I think the last one they did at 3, wasn't it?
We started at 3 and even I would. Though the town administrator is more the CEO of the entire organization, when we were looking at this with our police chief. It didn't kick in until after a period of time also. So, even if it's 6 months down the line kind of thing, but I'm not comfortable with a 6-month severance to start with. And I think over the course of time and contracts, we may get there, but not now.
Well, let's have a general discussion from the board, let's hear from Dennis. This is one where the two of you negotiate to a spot, and I write it down, to be honest.
How does the rest of the board feel about 6 months or less?
I think obviously we're all really wrong from. Yeah, the thing we don't talk about anymore, but it's out there, and that was such a blow to us. When it was like the insult to injury, like, and by the way, one of the things I do like that we have is that layer of protection now that we didn't have with the cause piece. That makes me feel a little bit better. I would obviously like us to roll it back, but if what we didn't, that buffer we didn't have. Does give me a little bit of. A little bit, it's hard to, because they're political positions, a lot of people put a lot of skin in the game. But I don't want to have to get burned again either. I mean, we were screwed, honestly.
I don't have a problem with actually the 6-month term because we usually don't have a problem in the first 6 months. Which is, all of our people have gone 6 months. And we would probably get to 6 months approval of the full package anyway.
I just think it's too much too soon. The last administrator aside. Amanda, think of your optics.
That's, no, I won't know, and we still have people that rightfully so are angry about what we gave.
I have confidence that the majority of this board who is making the offer to Dennis to become our town administrator is going to be here for the next 2 years. Okay, we're gonna get a new selectman in and we're gonna have a new police judge. That's 2 out of 1 vacant voter out of the rest of us. So I don't see a conflict with what our decision with Dennis and what Dennis knows of now and the research that he's done and the comfort zone that he has, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so please speak up as to, the board that he's going to be working with and directly reporting to. I think we as a board are going out to a place that is beyond what Georgetown can afford financially and our character, our reputation to offer at this point on a new contract, on a new hire, a 6-month severance package.
So what's your number?
3.
Rich?
I'm good with the 6 because we have a process in place for at least 4 months. That helps us get to where we got it, if we have to go down that road, so.
I'm okay with 6, but just from the standpoint that I don't want to scare him away. I don't want him to quit. You know, if you're splitting hairs like this, it does have ramifications, and we have been through it, and I see your point. But, you know, at the end of the day, I just want him to come here with some confidence that, you know, we all want him to stay.
But that trust works both ways.
I understand.
You know, I don't think Dennis wants to move halfway across the country either.
Right.
Nor do we want to, you know, be playing that game for 4 to 6 months. I mean, it's, you know, there's a risk factor, there's an adventure factor.
Understanding that the circumstances under which you would pay that money are different than your prior experience, because as you know, your prior experience was you pay that upon an offer to resign, there's a resignation, you pay it, and that's what the contract says. Here, the contract says, and I'm not arguing for another reason, really, but what we're talking about is under what circumstances would we pay it, and so how much. And the circumstances would be you terminate for no reason, right? Because you've just decided you've fallen out of love. But you first have to have gone through this 120-day process. You can fire him sooner and not worry about the 120 days, but then that's a lot you pay the severance. If she said, no, we've got problems, you go through the process and then you terminate after 120 days, you do not pay severance because that's how it's written. So, you know, your exposure is you decide you've fallen out of love with this. This is a toxic relationship and it does not make sense. And this happens in the world, I get it, you know. That's why it's written this way. It's a toxic relationship where you want out. And you want out in the first 6 months that he's here, then that would be under the present, yours right, that would be under the present draft, 6 months. We haven't heard from Lynette.
Lynette has her hand up, yeah.
Hey, Lynette.
Hi there. It has taken me years, and it has been taking me since Tom Hale's situation terms with the whole idea of severance. It can seem very financially painful when a town is forced to pay severance, but there are very good reasons for providing this as a benefit to the town administrator, who's a very valued member of the staff. And I don't have any problem with the 6 months being granted right off the bat, you know, on starting on day one. I don't foresee that waiting until he's been with us for 6 months before we grant that additional, before we bump it from 3 months of severance to 6 months. I don't really see that as benefiting us in any way. I think you get more commitment out of a new hire when you demonstrate that you value his coming to us by, you know, making our salary and benefits package as attractive as possible. This is my opinion, and I'm giving it because I will only be voting on this if there's a tie vote amongst the selectmen. So I just wanted to throw my opinion out.
Thanks, Lynette.
Greg, what's the industry average in these contracts?
It's going up. It's been 6 months for quite a while, and we've seen a lot of them now that are a year. And the reason that it's going up is it's taking longer to get a job. It's weird how everything's working out.
Okay, so I think we idea where the board stands on that. I'm counting the majority. It's 6. So we can move on.
Just a little typo, Jerry, at the end of 11.6,
Which is okay.
that A, I don't think needs to be there. If it's on your,
Oh, yeah, I found that,
did you catch that on your site?
I did. thank
Oh,
you,
okay,
but,
oh,
you
sorry,
know,
I didn't, okay.
No, I'm delighted everybody's reading this carefully because. And Greg is good at that. He's always finding little things. It's amazing. So thank you. We'll make it.
So number 13, hours of work.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest that a sentence be placed before the paragraph that's here, that's somewhat consistent with it. This is the one that says that, yes, we recognize that additional hours are worked outside of the normal basic 9 to 5, blah, da, 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 da. One, very last sentence, town administrator shall work remotely. I think that should be changed to may. However, the sentence that I'm suggesting that starts that paragraph is, it is recognized that Durham devotes an appropriate amount of normal office hours in town, conducting business, supervising staff, project management, accessibility to community members, and others wishing to do business with the town of Georgetown. However, it is also recognized that Durham must devote time outside, blah, 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 as written. I mean, I believe we want our town administrator to be here, to be in touch with the board, to be in touch with the community, to be in touch with the residents, the businesses, the county. And I feel that it's important that we recognize that. And yes, all of this rest is going to be a shuffle of the work time.
And I would suggest when you're talking about remote work, that there should be some sort of limit to that. I know as an organization where I work, they went to a certain number of hours or days that was available, because if there is no number to that, then what is reasonable and productive. Because then I mean, there's a lot of people in this world now, since COVID, want to work on their kitchen table or recliner and not actually have to come in. So making that a priority, I think is important, and then coming to an agreement on a reasonable, what is reasonable for remote work, I think is important.
My counter to that would be, and I hear that and I respect that, but I also think that this is gonna be my millennial voice, this is a lot of our trauma talking right here. We are, I'm a Zennial.
Okay.
She's in denial.
But, so I think that yes, we should look at, I mean, obviously the expectation of reporting to work is important, but I would also hope that we've gotten this far with someone who's a professional and knows that he has to come to the office. And like, I feel like if we're concerned about that, then we maybe are not in the right frame of mind. And so I would like to, I don't think we should define it, like, you can only do 10 hours a week of remote work, when there might be caveats to that. I mean, there are times in this 2025 that, people have an emergency. I mean, I took a meeting, a couple weeks ago, Lynette's at home right now. There's circumstances, so I think that it's a little bit tricky to manage that. And I think we need to be careful as if that's in the language of a contract versus a performance evaluation type of thing. And if we have that concern, and we say, hey, you've only been in the office 4 hours this week, we put that into a separate place in our work agreements as opposed to writing it straight into the contract.
So we ended up having to write a policy, because some professionals were taking advantage of that.
100%.
And we're showing up 1 or 2 days a week instead of 4 or 5.
Well, that's why I wanted to preface what was written here too, that the expectation is you're here. We also recognize that unless you live a half a block away, a couple of blocks away in town, the highway can close down.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't necessarily not want our town administrator available to us. And yes, we appreciate that he's still available and available remotely. So I can see that, but that's why too, it just, you know, it triggered me. My expectation is that town hall, town staff is open and people are here and available. And so to state that just very clearly. However, we do recognize that we are asking a lot of our staff and that the hours are endless and, you know, kind of situation. And so I am comfortable with it, but I don't believe it should say he shall work remotely.
Yeah,
You
that's,
know,
I think.
may, you know,
May.
it gives us a little bit more. And then too, I agree, you know, then maybe it becomes
A policy.
a performance issue or a policy issue. There was a lot of conversation with previous staff as to our previous town administrator working remotely and the whole comp time switching around thing. So it has been an issue here. And so let's just keep it clear, simple, and say, here's our expectations.
Vanessa, have your hand up.
Lynette has her hand up.
Yep, thanks. I think keeping it loose keeps things flexible. We live in a small town and there is an expectation for the administrator to be out in the community too, getting to know the business owners. And I think we're hiring somebody. I'm kind of I'm projecting. So, but I think we are dealing with someone, bringing somebody on board who has that same expectation of being a part of the community and keeping in touch with it. And you can't keep in touch if you chain somebody to an office. Yes, people will be able to drop in more reliably, but I think the expectation is for this position to be able to go out and meet and mingle also. And so allowing the flexibility, I don't think you need to spell it out. I think maybe very, very loosely, you know,
This isn't prohibiting that. That's
describe.
exactly the expectation. That's exactly the expectation. Being remote is not being on Sixth Street talking to the merchants or attending county meetings or
Right.
attending any other function. The expectation is though that you're working for the town of Georgetown and you're representing yourself within the town of Georgetown. And yes, we all recognize that meetings and other situations are going to take away from that. But our primary purpose is to have a town administrator here in town. Doesn't mean he's chained to his desk. I hope to God Dennis says, I don't want to be at my desk all the time. I expect to be out in the different departments and out having community meetings. You know, but you can't do that if, you know, the hours conflict or you're working remotely. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm working remote from my kitchen table. But, you know, so it just.
In Greeley or wherever.
I've made notes on 3 potential changes to paragraph 13. And it may well be that you're ready for consensus on this. We'll
I
take-
think that the language you put in is good.
Yeah.
All I was trying to say is don't try and nail it down too much.
So the 3 that I've made notes on are Mary's introductory sentence, which she'll have to email to me if you like it, but if she can do that again, we'll get a consensus and plug it in, because that sentence doesn't implicate the remote work. We'll get to that in a minute.
So it is recognized, and I've got it written down, I can give it to you, okay,
Sure.
and you might even be able to read my handwriting. It is recognized that Durham devotes an appropriate amount of normal office hours in town. Conducting business, supervising staff, project management, accessibility to community members and others wishing to do business with the town of Georgetown. However, and then your paragraph kicks in.
Okay. Everybody like that? Dennis, do you have any objection to that?
Do I?
Yeah.
No, I think if I was just to boil this down as to why it's important to me and at my discretion, it is that if we were to just to look at what we're doing this evening, it's a remote meeting. And I in my tour of town hall, have already identified a risk in terms of the lack of confidentiality within that building. And if I was to have a Zoom meeting in town hall, they may not be appropriate. I'd like the flexibility to have that either in on my kitchen table or in my office. But I have no intention of calling in 4 days a week in my jammies and doing the remote work horrors that we all saw during COVID. So I really just am trying to get to the point where at my discretion as the town administrator, respecting exactly what that opening sentence means and describes, because that's my intention, would have the flexibility to do that when I think it's appropriate and best fits my business operations, I guess. So however you want to write it, Jerry, I'm going to be fine with it. If it's no remote work at all, I'll live under that umbrella. It's fine with me. I was just trying to get at some flexibility at something at my discretion.
Fair enough. I think that sentence goes a long way. And I think it will help if in the last sentence, we turn shall into may. And I assume there's no objection to that by anyone, okay. Leaving us with, Rich's, more, objective standard, but you can work remotely, but no more than blank hours a week. Is the board wanting to go there, or has this discussion talked out?
That just sounds so right. That sounds like we're managing.
Okay,
No worries.
so we got paragraph 13 nailed down. What's next?
15.1, your second
15.1.
sentence, you
Okay.
need an E on the.
Thank you.
And then I have a question though, I'm not sure this is, my brain is either not interpreting this correctly or it's not written as what we mean. So the allowance, the relocation allowance shall be paid to Durham promptly after execution of this agreement. Durham shall provide receipts for moving expenses, and any excess above the actual amount shall be returned to Durham by the town. That's
That
excess,
doesn't math.
it's below.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Okay,
So if it's over cost, yeah, Michael, thank you. See, this is why you have a lot of people read these things. And now you guys voted at midnight. Okay,
15.3,
okay.
well, maybe let's talk about 15.2, just for shits and giggles. If we're paying our new town administrator $170,000 a year with this great package, do we need to provide initial housing for him for 3 months?
Members of the board?
I think it's appropriate. I think that there's a lot of expenses that come really fast and it was kind of bugged. And that's my opinion.
I'm kind of on John's, on board with John, because again, I want him to come.
The compensation is obviously hefty. I think that 3 months is a manageable number. I know. It's hard because I don't love the optics of that with that high level of compensation, but I do respect the fact that this is a difficult move. And I wouldn't wanna lose a contract for it.
3 months is fine.
Okay, 15.3,
Yes,
are we really requiring him to be in Clear Creek County?
so
Well-
this could, what if is it the evergreen? Yeah.
Exactly, so, you know, that this is in fairness to Dennis,
Yes.
you know,
this is-
let's,
Yeah,
yeah,
And I described to Dennis kind of the experience we had
okay,
previously, and I ended up writing it this way. I think in my conversation with Dennis, I think that there was maybe a little more flexibility, but I told him this gives you, if it's written this way, this gives you Silver Plume, Georgetown, Iowa Springs, Dumont, and Empire. And he said, those are enough, but
In parts of Evergreen.
There are parts
There are.
of Evergreen that are.
Part of Evergreen is.
Now you're right, yes, there are.
But it helps.
I lived in Clear Creek County on upper, Bear Creek, not Upper Bear, but actually I live there too, but the Mount Evans Road, right? If you go Clark West, there's a little subdivision there. Now, of course, the only way to get to Georgetown from there is drive all the way to Evergreen around the corner. But.
You don't wanna live there, it's really far.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about, but it's technically in Clear Creek
It
County.
is in Clear Creek County, yeah. Dennis, maybe you can tell us how, you probably looked at the neighborhood or the area. Tell us what you think about this. Is this an issue for you?
No, it's not an issue. I've lived within these kind of expectations before. The only outlying issue here is my wife works for Trader Joe's, and if she transfers to the Boulder store, which is what she's working on right now, then we were looking at trying to find some place that we're going to share our commutes, so to speak. But from what Jerry's talked to me about and what I've seen and investigated, it's not going to be a big issue to me. If the board wants to remove this requirement altogether, even more flexibility. So either way, it's up to the board in my mind.
I think that the community, we know, carries a lot of merit in the living situation of our leaders, that it matters to them a lot. Because they want a certain level of integration and just a community oriented ideology. Maybe we put in some language that says that at board discretion, because if there was, if there was an opportunity for him to live in Gilpin, if you go 4 miles up Fall River, you hit the Gilpin line. That is closer than where Jerry lived, that was within the county. And so if we had a board discretion option that we could say, well, yeah, of course that's reasonable. We have students at GCS that are technically Gilpin County residents because of that little pocket there at that national forest.
Well, and that's why I'm asking, because we know there's a problem just a few months ago, and I didn't know if the limitations, if we really, yes, we would love it if you lived, close.
You could town hall downstairs.
Yeah.
Move everybody out.
If you want to add a couple words at the end of that sentence that says, unless with the consent of the board, that's fine with me too. That gives a flexibility to encourage location within the county, but also if an unusual circumstance does arise and I want to choose another location, then I would come to the board and say, here's the situation, are you good with that? And then we're all on the same page and we're all together.
Especially if it makes it easier on his wife. Worst thing, yeah, I really want, again, I want them to come harmoniously.
Are you happy wife, happy life?
Yes, having been divorced once, I'm a big subscriber to that.
I'm inclined to just add at the end, unless with consent of the board.
Okay.
And that lets him come here and say, here's the dream house, my wife loves it, the commute isn't bad.
For the line.
What's next?
On a side note, I'm obsessed with the fact your wife works for Trader Joe's. It's my favorite place on the planet.
Yeah,
Love Trader Joe's.
that speaks highly of you.
Better warn your wife. And
What's next? Anything else?
all I know.
Oh my God.
Hey, you guys needed me for some of this.
We need you all the time. Unless there's more.
Can I talk about the job description?
Yeah, sure. I added that rather late. And I referenced it as an exhibit. And I went back and forth on whether I should do it, but I thought, I should get that in front of the board and see what they think.
So I did, so tell me if you agree with me.
Yeah.
Okay, so under supervision exercise is the third paragraph in.
Yeah. So point all heads of departments. Deputy town clerk, town marshal, which is the police chief.
Yeah, well, and town clerk is, No, go up to the paragraph above that, supervision exercise, administration, police department, road bridge.
Right, yeah.
So. I just don't know if the events and marketing person falls within administration, if that position
Yeah.
doesn't, I think it should be. Noted and included, because. The town administrator does supervise
Yeah.
the events and marketing person. So I just didn't want that to be vague if that didn't technically fall into administration.
Also. Did we hire the town clerk and the town treasurer?
Well, wait, so yeah, years ago we did, so then now we can jump to number 3. And the town clerk shouldn't be in there.
It's like, do we have a
You're
sword,
right.
or did I forget to,
You're right.
did I do that?
The town marshal should be changed to the police chief
yeah.
if applicable. And then remove the treasurer
Yeah,
too,
you're
because that is now,
I agree.
yeah.
I agree with that.
All the way down at the bottom, number 18, and this is a just in case.
What?
Could we add or designee, so ensure that all town codes are enforced through the efforts of the building official and or code enforcement or designee?
Yeah.
Because we kind
Yeah,
of
we might.
don't have any, yeah.
Yeah.
Then on the second page, required skills, knowledge and ability, number 2.
Driver's license?
I think we need to give grace to how quickly he obtains that Colorado license.
I'll
and it
take out
could
the word
be-
Colorado.
Well. No, we want to commit to live here,
Oh, okay, all right.
but I think we could be consistent with the state statute or whatever, the code that says what, I don't know, I meant to look it up and I didn't.
I think
But
it's like something.
I don't think it's that long,
Yeah.
but whatever it is for the vehicle code that says you gotta get your license within X amount of time.
It's 90 days to, I think it's 90 days on your driver's license and how long, I don't know how long that's in your car registration.
Well, I don't care about his car registration, I care about his driver's license, so I just wanna give him the time to
Yeah.
get that,
Yeah, I can do
as opposed to.
that. I can
He
do that.
has to do that before he even moves here.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then under number 5, I think we should strike police science.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
because. And that's all I got.
And I'll go ahead and show it updated as of, I'll show it updated as of now. And honestly, this is a list of word can evolve over time. If it wishes and should. The way to handle this would be a motion. And Greg actually wrote the one I wrote, or he emailed me my own stuff. I've got a motion that I think would work.
I'll move to appoint Dennis Durham as the Georgetown Town Administrator and to authorize and direct the police judge and town clerk to execute the employment agreement in the form presented and with the revisions noted during the meeting.
Second, somebody,
Second.
man, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes,
You're opposed?
yes.
Okay.
So we have a majority. And it passes.
Welcome aboard, Dennis. See you in a couple.
Thank
weeks.
you. You bet, and hopefully you'll hear from me frequently between the time of tonight and when you see me.
Very good.
See me?
Thanks. Thanks for
Say
visiting.
hello.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, hey Dennis, really
Thanks,
quick before
Dennis.
you go, I'm gonna shoot you an email because I need to do a press release stuff, one of my board responsibilities. So after this meeting, if you'll just, I just need a quick bio on you, so I can do a press release.
Okay.
So.
Is
Selectmen
it,
1-1, if you wanna send it over, you were CC'd on that email earlier, I'm 1.1.
is it required this evening? It's 10:30
No,
here.
I'd like to get it, out like sometime tomorrow, if I could.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Shoot me an
It can be
email and I will
short, it's
send
gotta
you
put
back what you
something in
need.
there.
Are you an hour ahead of or behind us or 2? You're 10:30 right now, right?
Right.
Okay, well, that's super fair.
Good night.
Tomorrow morning is fine, I just would like to get it out to do a press release,
Okay,
to try to hit the paper by Thursday.
sounds awesome. I'll look for your email.
Cool, thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so
Good
much.
night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Welcome aboard.
Jerry, I emailed that paragraph.
Oh, true,
Unless you
thank
want me to-
thank you. I'll plug it in, I'll run this whole thing out.
Okay.
Get it signed up.
All right, on the next one.
Thanks for your work on that, Jerry, great.
Thank you, Jerry.
Good process. Enjoyed working with both of those actually. Good.
All right, next item is 2024 year-end financial report. Who's gonna please take this one?
I am glad to see that we finally got the ability to produce one. It's been too long, obviously, before it's since one of them been produced. And our financial consultant was able to pull one off and we could sell software because enough information was in there that you felt confident that it reflected. There are a few things that we changed yet, and I addressed those in the overview that I did. For instance, when you approved paying the $45,000 for the visitor center, you amended that budget by $45,000. And that wasn't reflected in this number. So by amending that budget, it kept the budget positive. There was only one budget that's over, and that's your sales tax fund. And I think that's just directly reflected in the fact that we didn't have any financial reports for the last couple of years. So we couldn't monitor what that did, but I can promise to get things done. So I just want to make sure that you know that's coming, and the auditors look at it. And they're just gonna see that it's in the name.
Lynette has something to share.
Thank you. Greg, is there some reason why the workforce and tourism enhancement page, which is page 22 of the detailed report, doesn't show that 45,000?
Yeah, it got put under the sales tax by mistake. It needs to be in this other fund.
Okay, I was under the misunderstanding that the correction to that had been made. The correction still needs to be made, is that correct?
Yes, and I
Okay.
communicated with
Okay,
Lorraine about what changes need to be made, but she's on vacation this week, so I said next week is fine.
great. Okay,
And just another clarification on your summary, the 45,000 wasn't paid to Historic Georgetown, it was paid to the Georgetown Trust.
Correct.
I know this isn't the official document, but they're two separate organizations. Close, but.
One question, any other question? Motion to accept.
As amended though,
As amended.
so I move to accept the 2024 year-end financial report as amended.
And I just want to point out, anytime you consider a financial report, always use the word accept. Don't use approve. Because the only way you can approve it is through an audit. And none of these are audited. It's all these reports, but just always think of it in terms of just accepting it.
Rather than denying.
Okay.
Well, you can deny it.
The minutes will use that magic word. I'm sure Bridget is writing down that magic word. Maybe we'll use it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, it passes.
Thank you.
So we got an MOU with the county and Historic Georgetown.
This is a agreement that you approved about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago. And the county never took it up. And so they now took it up about a month ago, something like that.
actually, they had, it was on their agenda last month, I believe, yes. And it it got tabled without discussion because so much time had elapsed and they didn't feel comfortable signing something that was basically already a year old. Even though Georgetown and historic Georgetown had also approved it back in February of 24. So that's why it's coming back with the revision to take the start date out of that first paragraph and put it into, basically it takes effect when when the last party has signed the agreement. It also just makes everybody aware that they need to talk to each other just to make sure that Excel isn't trying to do end runs around anyone. Intentional or unintentional. Just trying to avoid miscommunication.
Anybody else have questions? Are we changing the name?
Yeah, we'll change, we'll change.
I need a motion,
Doesn't matter if we're using the same name in the motion. If we're gonna change it.
Well,
The town
The
administrator.
motion's just,
Oh,
Yeah, I
Recommend-
just, that was the table. So just
Oh,
call
I'm
it-
sorry.
just Call it historic.
yeah.
Oh, okay, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding.
Okay, oh my God.
you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. This is ahead of me and so I'm feeling, and I read it earlier, but I wasn't 100% clear on it, so I'm good. Carry on, don't mind me.
You have further discussion.
You're okay, you're okay. I mean, it doesn't, you guys voted on it last year, you obviously voted on it for a reason, I don't mean to. Sorry.
All right, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding the decommissioning of the Georgetown Hydro District project.
Second.
You've got a first and a second, in favor,
Aye.
Can I get Steve, please?
and what? In the majority passes. All right, where are we here? Staff,
We'll search for something report.
I don't have anything to add to anything.
I got a quick one for BPC. So BPC is still pursuing, modifying the traffic flow on Sixth Street for a one-way, which this board supported back in June, so they're putting together some information and we'll probably be seeing that soon. And they're also looking at amending the food truck ordinance, so again, that'll be coming up before us. And the conversation continues about moving the historic Georgetown sign closer to the roundabout somewhere, but who
Is
knows?
that the piers that were formed or the original historic?
The original, yeah, so we just,
I'll put some new piers down for.
yeah. Those are just hot topics right now.
Then I'm also looking into parking lots.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't think those that, yeah, so for the town to potentially. Maintain, I don't know if it would be through a lease, similar to the lease that we have with the Hotel de Paris, that we lease that property for $1 a year. I know they're making big bucks off of this. And but
Those colonial.
But with, and to make that a public parking area, and with that, that part of the contract that we have with them, or the agreement that we have with them, is that the town will maintain that, the gravel lots and do some work on it, and so BPC is asking if the town would look into some of the other privately owned parking lots to make them more accessible for public use, even though we know the public uses them, but to make it more of a legit thing and maintain.
Like behind the ramp.
Yeah, like, in fact, there's one where there's a hole that's gotta be.
Yeah.
6-7 inches deep.
Oh, God, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Kids love that thing.
But again, it's for $1, they're getting a great deal because the maintenance that then we're on the hook for, or potentially on the hook for as the town, could be significant. So it's, you know, it sounds like a great idea, but let's be careful when we actually look at how that comes out. So,
Any other reports?
Yes, I will be doing the press release, obviously regarding Dennis, and get that over to Freestone, and then, additionally for PIO, information, there is a candidate forum on Monday night, at 5 o'clock PM,
5:30.
5:30 PM. Thank you.
Where
It is at the community center,
I think Jamie Lacrosse is.
yes. And so.
That's what we ought to do our 6 with Slack.
That's what we're, yes, and then it's,
don't muddy the water.
yeah, they don't want to do it, so I'm sorry, I was gonna look at, oh, yes, 5:30 PM at the community center. So,
Is there, a statement, like, is there some things that we cannot talk about, like former employees or personnel?
did you get the questions? Cause they didn't ask about that.
No.
I will give you the questions. We got our questions,
Okay.
already, they sent them to us. I will share them after the meeting. So they're fine, honestly, there's some really good questions on there. There are also some questions that do make me feel that we have an opportunity to continue to educate our community and our stakeholders about what our actual role in the town is. To be completely clear,
Very good.
there's some questions on there, I'm like, I don't know how to help you with that. Thank you, but that's okay. We'll clear it up in form.
Very good. Had something that was brought up, Keisha and Lorraine with the express bill pay and the decision we made on that deal. I was just asked to bring it up. I wasn't sure if it needed to be on the agenda or during this time, that maybe we revisit. And go with the express bill pay, like this happened.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was gonna hit an agenda.
Actually, putting some more information together.
We wanted you guys to discuss us to get back to you.
Go ahead, it should go on the next agenda.
Okay, great, that's what we'll do.
But with more information to address all of the concerns that were expressed, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, if they wanna put on dog and pony show and show us the little, you know, and if it becomes a work session to be able to handle that, depending on what's on the rest of the agenda, I'm personally fine with that. I would rather see the whole, you know, dog and pony show than.
I'm gonna get a different sales person.
So can we do that at 5 and meeting at 6?
But then let's make sure that it's on the agenda for,
So we can act on it.
yeah.
And Lorraine has experience with this, if there's a way to get her here, I think that would be important.
It sounds like we didn't have all of the information.
Right,
And that's,
exactly.
yeah. In order for us to vote, we must know the things we need to know.
Educate us.
It will be on the next agenda. Thank you.
Next thing you know, you don't know.
Anything else? All right, town attorney report.
Actually, 3 things that are short, just as a report. I asked Greg to agenda approval that we did not need an executive session on those 2 pieces of litigation, that's because they're in good shape. There's nothing that we need from the board. Capital price mine case, if you know, got an email from Joe, that the town's motion was granted, the other side motion was denied. So we're done, we're out of that case, that's good news. On the open records case, we've got.
You kind of like, you brush over that like so demurely, I mean, it should be champagne and. Well, we're out of that, on with the next. What?
You know, I'm sorry, I'm kind of, I'm kind of a results oriented guy, and we'll start with the next. That's their challenge, it's all good. So there's that, the open records case, the hearing, I think, the next week, 10 days. But we have suicide assigned to Edgar Risk Sharing Association, as you know, there's an insurance coverage for at least up to a certain amount. And I'm very pleased with the attorney got assigned for that into that law firm. And he's doing a really good job telling the story. In that case, there's nothing we need to do, and therefore, at the moment, so there's another direction we need it. There had been a question on natural medicine. You have your system in place. You might notice that in the paper, there's sort of a rush of applications to the states to get natural medicine licenses. I'm very pleased that the town is way out in front of that, so that when they finally percolate here, we've got that covered.
I'm sorry, say the question one more time.
Instruments and applications.
No, you've not had.
There had been a question, I think, with Mary Grace about, what can facilitators do at work? They do it. We deal most of it with natural medicine businesses, but what about things that happen in private homes? And there's not much we can do about that, but I had a law clerk do a little research, actually paralegal law clerk do a little research, and she did discover that, or find out that at-home facilitation is banned by DORA, the Department of Regulatory Agencies, has a December. And she said it's unclear if DORA plans to take this up again at a future date. So I think DORA has, recognized the concerns with having, those sessions taking place in a home. Rather than, at least a business location. And I think that's a step. I fully believe that within the next year, both state and local will have had an experience with this industry, just like they're wanting, kind of figured it out. There are things we were doing right, things we were doing wrong, and you adjust. But I'm pleased the town is positioned with its licensing scheme and zoning restrictions that positions the town really well for whatever would come in. The only other thing I am working on, I did not bring it for this meeting. You had done first reading on an amendment to the ordinance on business promotion commission, I think membership. Craig Abrahamson had shared some additional changes to this business promotion commission code sections, and I have those, and I'm going to render them into an ordinance form for you to see. Did you discuss that at the prior meeting?
Yeah.
Because I was not here, and I assume that.
We didn't discuss those changes.
Oh.
We didn't discuss the changes at this meeting.
Okay. So BPC, am I right, Gary, came up with additional, because the first request was really mine, Chris, so take that first one, Chris, which I did. But then BPC met and said, okay, while you're at it, kind of thing, do these other things.
Yeah.
And I don't have them in my head, but I don't want to take your time tonight with trying to remember them. You might remember.
I don't remember them either, so I won't take anybody's time either.
I'll just.
You're welcome, John.
I'll line them up in kind of a, the classic red line legislative, so you can see what you got now and what the changes are. And that is fine for second reading. If it works for you, the next meeting, you just run it on second reading. If it raises questions, it'll be fully informed, and we can continue the second reading hearing in order to learn more from the UPC. But that's where that will give us, and I can talk about. That's what I report. Thank you.
Clerk?
Just 3 quick things. Update on the election. We sent out the mail-in ballots. I want to thank Lynette for helping me stuff those ballots and get them out on time. I really appreciated it. Both got some paper cuts, but it was worth it. We've started to get those back, so everything appears to have gone off without a hitch. There was also, I wanted to update you guys on CML, which was you guys had helped me apply for the scholarship opportunity. I got a response. It was not granted because we've gotten the scholarship the past 2 years and they can't do it 3 years in a row. And the fact that it's no longer free and I'm waiting on a little bit of medical information to come back. That's sort of, my attendance is a little bit up in the air right now, but I'll keep you posted. And then Sasha's on the Alpine. I wanted to give you guys an update. Her public notice has been posted. We'll have a hearing for her liquor license at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is the soonest possible date with a 30-day application wait period. That should submit her application on the March 4th. April 4th would be the soonest that we could hear her
have a public hearing, we're gonna have it on the 8th, so just a 4-day extension on that, and she's aware of that. And from there, we'll proceed with the application procedures, which is submitting, if everything goes well here, submitting the application to the state, getting their approval, which hopefully will take about a week, and then giving her licenses.
So about the middle there.
Yeah,
And thank you for responding, because we,
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
so,
yeah.
you know, Sasha reached out to a few of us and was concerned, and there's, you know, confusion because there was an establishment there and not, and all the timeframes, and so I greatly appreciate your efforts in responding to me and others and sharing that handbook information, because I think that's valuable, especially from the position that, you know, we recognize that we have some opportunities maybe for new places to come in, and just so that we're aware of how the process works. Because they've all been pretty much slam dunks in the past, and this one, you know, seems to have taken longer, where in effect it really hasn't.
Yeah.
But not being as familiar with the process, you know, from when we actually see it. So thanks for your patience.
Yeah, and I,
You know, but I think it's valuable for us, because if we are able to, you know, entice additional restaurants to come in, you know, the timing is very important.
I mean, if somebody's thinking about having a restaurant.
Exactly, like apply now.
Tell them to apply for a liquor license.
Yeah.
Somebody's thinking about it,
Case of lay law.
tell them not to do it.
Riskiest business you can get into.
Tell me about it.
So,
All right.
so thanks.
Susan, the town administrator.
Hello, first I wanted to introduce our newest employee, Q.
Yay, we have a treasurer.
So he was taking over treasury duties, so, I'm not doing those anymore, yay, well, I'm doing transitional stuff, but he was here to save the day, so thanks, glad to have you on board. Next thing I want to talk about is Silver Plume, as you know, is currently being serviced by the town of Georgetown for their sewer. And when we were going over the contract with Silver Plume for EQRs for the budget coming up for 2025, she contacted Chelsea to ask about any updates to their EQRs, which if you don't know is the equivalent ratio to one hospital. And they notified us that they had one additional EQR since Chelsea was taken over. I looked at our contract and I ran some numbers, and it don't quite like work out the way that they should. So emailed Chelsea to ask her about it, and she was like, "These are great questions that I also tried to get the answers to way back in the day." So I just wanted to inform you that we are looking at that IGA and trying to figure out how much we're charging them, how many EQRs they actually have. And then while I was talking to her, one of the things that she mentioned to me was that we used to have like a water commission that had representatives from the board here and the representatives from Silver Plume and the staff. Now, we haven't done that for a long time, so I don't know if there's any interest in reforming that commission. Ryan has been working with our sewer guy pretty successfully for actual maintenance and day-to-day operations for a really long time. But I wanted to bring it to you because we are looking at it, and I expect we will be bringing you a report on what the appropriate amount is to charge them. Mary has been updating it every year when she updates everybody's water. So it might be the most appropriate at the same time when we update everybody's water to also do Silver Plume's contracts, which is in July. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention right now that we are looking at that, so.
Did you used to serve on that?
Yeah, if you're talking about the sewer board.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually helpful back in the day because it seemed like a drop of tension between the two communities. It just put everything out there that we can all talk about.
It wouldn't have to be all the time.
Just when needed.
Yeah.
The former members from that represented Silver Plume are interested in bringing the, gang back together.
Yeah. I
So,
think there's good reason.
Yeah,
It seems fabulous. My historic perspective about it, perception of it is it was valuable.
And what does Ryan think about having
And so you agree with that?
He's okay with it too.
He's okay with it, either way, like I said, his operations, working with the sewer guy that works with Silver Plume have been effective, and so he's not worried about it. But if there is a meeting, I'm sure that he would love the opportunity to talk to you guys about things that are going on in a more formal setting and work out whatever we need to with Silver Plume. And he also mentioned that it's been a while since we updated that contract, and he's mentioned it before and wanted it to be updated, so.
I know they're not a boom town, but they certainly have probably built more than one additional.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how this works out in the contract, but their sewer line runs down Argentine, and there's actually properties in Georgetown that connect to their sewer line. So it might be that they haven't updated a lot in Silver Plume, but there's properties here that have been added.
Right,
Since-
tap that.
Yeah, so we definitely need to revisit.
Right, yeah.
Oh, so is that the one that was at Seventh and Brownell that we had all those problems with? Because at that point it was,
down, I think it's down the loop for one-way section.
oh, okay.
Is that right, Lynette? And then down Argentine.
My recollection was that the break that was a few years ago in the Silver Plume wastewater line was more like right around, across from the market, somewhere around the Crazy Horse. I think that's where the break was.
I'll never forget it, we popped that manhole and Bob Smith drove right into it. With a cone, like I identified where it is, and just drove right in.
Well, that was a long time. That was a long time. Bob was still here, so.
That helpful?
Yes, thank you. I will work with Chelsea to try to draft some documents to get that commission going. In the same vein, just talking about that sewer, we were sent an advertisement for a new apartment complex being developed at 1999 Argentine, which is the west side of Argentine, across the street from Lakeview Flats Phase 2, so the undeveloped part. I was not aware of that project, but upon some investigation with Jerry and with the developers there, in 2022, they had submitted some paperwork for review. However, it has been many years since that has happened.
Apartments one? I thought it was.
I thought this was like, it was apartments on top and retail on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I think that it was also going to have like Never Summer's first retail
Okay,
spot.
but it was a commercial piece
It was a
too.
mixed use.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, sorry.
Yes.
They just apparently were like.
Yeah,
So,
they were getting ready to lease out those units, so.
Yeah. They kind of dropped that aside for about 2 years, we were close on the agreements and then it's private development, who knows funding, whatever. They just kind of disappeared into there.
so where is it after you had the conversation with them? What's?
So we spoke with them and they are working with Centennial Opportunity Fund because there was some cost sharing agreement details they need to work out. And some engineering for sharing sewer over there. And, during this meeting, I received an email from Creighton, he's looking into it, they're gonna get together and work on that. So I expect that that development will move forward, don't know the timeline yet, but I did tell them that they have to get utilities approved by Ryan, because we know that we're doing that big capacity study right now. There might be additional infrastructure, there's a lot more stuff under the road than there used to be. So Ryan's worried about, can the sewer line even go where we thought it was gonna go, because there's fiber and all kinds of other stuff, and we talked about power.
Well, and with a brand new street,
Yeah,
you'll probably tell them to bore it, you don't want you cutting across.
Yeah, please.
right.
Oh, come on,
The
that's a
street's
Georgetown.
not new.
If you can get by with making them bore, it's way better.
So once they get that worked out with Centennial Opportunity Fund about who's paying for what. And what that infrastructure is gonna look like, they need to submit that to Brian, Brian will approve the utilities plan. Assuming everyone else in staff is good with it, then it will go back to the DRC because building permits that have expired. Have to go back for a COA. The DRC will have an opportunity to review that project again, and then if they can COA from the building permit.
I mean, and the other concern is that, I mean, I know we're in the middle of a capacity study, but did anyone consider this development in our water use plans, like,
I sort of remember that being part of the document.
was it?
Well, it's a pressure issue.
How many residential units were they hoping to have there based on?
I don't have any engineering plans, I literally just have the ad that says lease is available in 1999 Argentine, so.
Cause it wasn't that big of a commercial property.
That's like not putting the cart before the horse, that's like, the cart is like, doesn't exist.
They're private enterprise.
Maybe they can build a third floor.
Yeah, if there's no utility, well, their COA is expired.
They told us they expected to go there and find the manhole and sewer line in and were shocked with it.
And they just like, okay, that's fine, great.
You're gonna be in the meeting with
Run
Craig
through
and
summer retail, my friend.
If you'd like me to be, I kind of wasn't sure if I was invited, so up to you.
I don't know, it seems like you know more about what's proposed there. I don't know, what do you think, Mary?
I don't know, let's.
I think it's a good idea.
I mean, that way we're not, oh, well, this
Okay,
is
now-
not say, you know, we can, okay, what about this, and we're all on the same page.
April 1st.
Yeah.
April.
That would be-
We have a cost sharing agreement, you know, that was negotiated in 2022. That never got signed because, as I say, for whatever reason. They decided to pause their development. That's really detailed around, but it was never executed, so it doesn't find each yet. But it basically has the developer responsible for building sewer main will come from the middle of the big work project across the road to the Soul Circle. It has it's got Centennial be required to pay the cost of one of the two manholes of that.
Right,
The town responsible for
the other,
the other manhole because that was in our interest. But the developer designing and building the whole thing, you know, I have like 3 contractors doing that's a big project. And so that deal is quite been negotiated, but if it wasn't executed, then town doesn't have to still agree with it. I think it still largely makes sense and was letting you know that the starting point probably for moving forward will be that draft that was put together in 2022.
Well, won't they have to resubmit it?
Well, I resubmit it, it's not really a land development application, it's just a cost sharing agreement.
It'll show up on this agenda.
I didn't show up on this together. I also think, however, that we haven't heard for sure that Centennial Opportunity Fund or something like the company are still on board with that. It was a somewhat difficult negotiation to get to this draft. Time has passed, and they'll either be happier with it or not as happy with it. And I'm kind of waiting to see that shoe drop and see what happens. From my perspective, I'd like to see that happening before we spend a lot of argument on it, because it may not. And with all due respect to the developer, they're all anxious, they're all these emails now every 30 minutes. That comes after 24 months of radio silence, right after 24 months ago, lots of emails every 30 seconds. And I get it, but that's how that world is, and I'm not disparaging, but recognizing that's the reality, so we'll see.
But they also need to recognize this one.
Yeah, they do, and I'm kind of waiting for them and Centennial Opportunity Fund to show that they're together on this, they're ready to move, and I think we are too, you know, I think we're that close.
And what was our cost back then compared to what our cost is gonna be now?
Yeah, not much, it's one manhole, but manholes probably cost more now. You know, there is,
Terrifying. From Nina Vanasha?
yeah. So there's that, there's an update, we'll see. Happily, I think most of the effort has to come from the private side on this, and we'll respond to them, we won't get it their way, I think obviously the town wants to see development there, that would be a good use for that spot, and we continue to revitalize that part of the town. So. But that's my perspective, we spent some tough 2-3 months working really hard on these.
Ms. Lauren, our former administrator, told us that project was moving forward.
Maybe it is now, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm sorry.
It probably was until it wasn't.
What else you got for us?
I wanted to give you just a very brief update since Dwayne's not here about the Clear Creek Regional Housing Authority. We've been doing meetings like second and fourth Mondays of the month, 6 p.m. in Idaho Springs. We're talking about signing a lease at the Health and Wellness Center in Idaho Springs that would be free. You guys don't need to know all that detail, but we're moving forward with like the location, and we have bylaws and charters, and we have a draft for legal agreement for the planning grants that we're applying for, and we have a draft for like a facilitator, that's what it is, a facilitator to help us get the foundations of that in place, and that grant has been applied for. And then we also have a draft for the actual executive director. So that's just moving forward.
The date, there was something posted on our website, and I know it wasn't created by us, it was a county document. The dates were incorrect, the next meeting, I think, is the 7th, but their headline shows April 27th, now maybe it's been corrected, but for those who look at it, we may be able to clarify that, so it's not as confusing as things.
Yes, I will check on that, thank you. Yeah, not county technically, that one's CCRHA, so, which is all of us. Okay, and then last thing is, we did stop by Evergreen today to get whatever necessary paperwork so that Q has access to our bank accounts. They sent me a letter to make him a signer, which I don't think is what Mary was. She had access to the accounts, but was not a signer. So just want you to know that we're working on that. We don't quite have that letter yet. I don't know if it'd be appropriate for you guys to take a motion to get him. I should just read the letter back.
That was the organization that we were just dealing with updating, right, some of the other.
This is Evergreen, but yeah, you'll need to do a motion actually for all of them, so we should definitely just do it at the next meeting. All of the banks, you'll need to get.
Oh, signing the signature for me, yeah.
Would he be a signer though?
But there were some things that the treasurer wasn't the signer for, which just for safety reasons. Yeah.
My take on that is, that's not something this group sitting here tonight is gonna be able to really.
Okay, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, it needs to be more thoroughly baked, and then we can put it into whatever action the board should be taking.
Thoroughly banked, is that what you said, bank?
Baked, big.
Oh.
Bank might work.
I know.
That's, yeah, you know. Very sharper as the night goes on, so far.
Wow, there's caffeine in here. Oh, there isn't.
Sorry, okay.
And then my last update is just that we've hired a new wastewater operator. His name, well, actually, it's pending a background check, but we feel good about him. So his name is Devin McWilliams.
Where's,
Devin McWilliams.
where's he from?
Locally.
Georgetown?
Yep, like born and raised, I think, so.
Okay.
Like he has spooky ghost stories about the hotel with Groove, so.
Experience plumbing.
Yes, and
Wait,
he's a licensed plumber,
Devin and Darcy,
probably.
his wife Darcy,
I don't know his wife.
red hair.
I've not known his wife.
We didn't hire her, we hired him.
I know that.
He has red hair.
He's like Fitzy's cousin or something like that.
That doesn't.
Yeah, Fitzy,
I love
Fitzy's his uncle.
Who,
Right.
we just disintegrated the chaos, it was quite a meeting, it's just like.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
No, you
We still have
Thank you. We already covered the subjects that are on the report. Again, Lynette pointed out, I used the word hiring Dennis at the last meeting, and meant to say to negotiate. And was trying to put this thing together at the last minute. And say it. And then the year-end financial report, and I'm really thankful to Lorraine for really sticking with us and getting all of that stuff done and able to produce a report. I actually prefer doing it monthly, not even quarterly. I think that's too far apart.
Yeah, that'd be great.
For sure, we would love it.
That's a new assignment for our new treasurer.
He's taking notes, so.
Well,
And
he's
then-
been sitting here all night, he's like, finally, I can do something.
And then Mary asked me if I could produce information about what's happening at Road and Bridge and water wastewater, and I did. And I thought I handed it out, but it's not here. I printed it out just before the meeting, so I don't know where it went, but I'll get it to you. Yes.
Well, and especially now because we are gonna be in this transition mode and, you know, I'm concerned about seasonal stuff, falling through the cracks. Or should we be looking, you know, do we have contracts coming up for seasonal projects, you know, kind of thing, and so I hope that you can share with our new town administrator that, you know, that should just be kind of part of the whole, unless they come, you know, like those regular.
Well, we had a pretty decent discussion this morning, so I'm gonna be trying to keep pushing.
Yeah,
that
no,
protective discussion.
Right? Motion.
I move to adjourn.
Good
job.
All in favor?
I.
Black and Rob.
I want to.
Okay.